Don't show your face at our Thanksgiving table, you old fool. My daughter-in-law spat those words at me while standing in the doorway of the $2.5 million mansion I paid for. She looked me up and down with pure disgust and told me I was too loud and too unpolished for her high society friends. She thought she was banning a helpless old man from a family dinner. She had no idea she was actually cutting off her own life support. I just smirked, canceled every single cent of their funding, and vanished into the night. By sunrise, she was banging on my hotel door, her face ashen with panic because her credit cards were dead and her luxury SUV was being towed away. But let me back up to how this war began. My name is Winston Bishop. Back in the day on the south side of Chicago, they called me the Duke. I built a logistics and trucking empire from one rusted pickup truck into a fleet that crosses 48 states. I have faced union strikes, hostile takeovers, and street gangs. I know how to handle enemies, but I never thought my biggest enemy would be sleeping in my son's bed. I retired 5 years ago after my wife Beatrice passed away. I keep a low profile now. I drive a 10-year-old sedan, and I wear suits that went out of style a decade ago. I like it that way. It helps me see who people really are. And 3 days before Thanksgiving, I saw exactly who my daughter-in-law Courtney truly is. I drove over to my son Marcus's house on a Tuesday evening. The air was biting cold, the kind of Chicago wind that cuts right through your bones. I had stopped by the butcher shop and picked up a prime rib roast. It was heavy and expensive, and I wanted to drop it off early so it could marinate for Thursday. I was looking forward to this Thanksgiving. It had been a lonely year, and I just wanted to sit at the head of the table and see my granddaughter Zoe and maybe tell a few stories about how Beatrice used to burn the cornbread every single year. I pulled up to the driveway. The house was magnificent, a sprawling colonial estate in the best zip code in the state. I remember signing the check for the down payment. I remember signing the checks for the monthly mortgage too, though Marcus likes to pretend he handles that. I walked up the stone path clutching the brown paper bag with the meat. I could smell the faint aroma of sage and butter coming from the kitchen vent. They were already prepping. It felt like home, or so I thought. I rang the doorbell. I waited. I rang again. Finally, the heavy oak door swung open. It was Courtney. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my first car. She did not smile. She did not step back to let me in. She just stood there blocking the entrance like a bouncer at a club I was not cool enough to enter. "Hello, Courtney," I said, trying to keep my voice warm. "I brought the prime rib for Thursday. I figured I could help you season it tonight if you are busy." She did not even look at the bag. Her eyes were fixed on my shoes. My comfortable orthopedic leather shoes that had seen better days. She wrinkled her nose slightly. A microaggression I had seen 1,000 times before. "We need to talk about Thursday, Winston," she said. She never called me Dad or Pop, just Winston, and she said it like it was a bad taste in her mouth. "Okay," I said, feeling a sudden chill that had nothing to do with the wind. "Is everything all right? Is Marcus okay? Is Zoe sick?" "They are fine," she said, crossing her arms. "But plans have changed. We are hosting a very important dinner this year. Several members from the charity board are coming. The CEO of Marcus's firm might stop by. It is going to be a very sophisticated evening." I nodded slowly, not quite catching her drift yet. "That sounds nice. I will wear my best suit, the blue one Beatrice liked. I will make sure I do not tell the story about the time I drove the truck through the blizzard in '82. I will be on my best behavior." Courtney sighed. A long, dramatic exhale that puffed into the cold air. "No, Winston. You do not understand. You are not invited." I froze. The wind whistled in my ears, but her words were louder. "Excuse me," I asked, thinking I must have misheard her due to my hearing aid acting up. "You are not invited," she repeated slower this time, as if speaking to a child. "Look, let us be honest. You do not fit the vibe we are going for. You are too loud. Your mannerisms are too urban. You tell those long, rambling stories about the old neighborhood and working with your hands, and frankly, it is embarrassing. It makes Marcus look bad. We are trying to build a brand here. We are trying to elevate our status. Having you there sitting at the head of the table, slurping soup and talking about trucking unions destroys the aesthetic." I stood there gripping the bag of meat until my knuckles turned white. I looked past her shoulder into the foyer. I could see the crystal chandelier I paid for. I could see the marble floors I paid for. I could see my son Marcus walking down the hallway. "Marcus," I called out. My voice was deep and steady, the voice I used to use to command a warehouse floor. "Marcus, come here." My son walked to the door. He looked tired. He was wearing a designer cardigan and holding a glass of wine. He saw me standing out in the cold and he saw his wife blocking the door. He did not look surprised. He looked ashamed, but he did not move to open the door. "Did you hear what your wife just said?" I asked him. "She says I am banned from Thanksgiving. She says I am an embarrassment." Marcus looked at his shoes. He swirled the wine in his glass. He could not even look me in the eye. "Look, Dad," he mumbled. "Courtney has a point. This dinner is really important for my networking. These are high-class people. And you know how you get after a few drinks. You start talking politics or you start talking about how hard you worked back in the day. It makes people uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable," I repeated. "I worked 18-hour shifts hauling steel so you could go to private school and learn how to be comfortable. I built this entire life so you would never have to feel the cold wind I am feeling right now. And now I am too loud for your table." "It is just 1 year," Marcus said, shrugging. "Honestly, Dad, you do not even like the food we serve. We are having truffle risotto and duck. You like soul food. You like collard greens and ham hocks. You would hate it. You should just go to that diner you like, the one downtown. You will be happier there with your own kind of people." That was the dagger. Your own kind of people. Coming from my own son. A boy I raised to be proud of his heritage. A boy I raised to respect his elders. He was standing there in a house my sweat built, telling me to go eat at a diner because I was not refined enough for his charity board friends. I looked at Courtney. She was smirking. A small, victorious smile that said she had won. She had finally severed the last tie. She had successfully pushed the old man out. "So that is it then?" I asked quietly. "I am not welcome in this house." "Not for this event, no," Courtney said, checking her perfectly manicured nails. "Maybe come by next week to pick up your mail or something. But please call first. We are going to be very busy recovering from the party." I looked at the house one last time. It looked warm and inviting from the outside, but inside it was rot. Pure rot. "I understand," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. It was the calm before the tornado. "If that is how you feel, I will not bother you. I want you to have the Thanksgiving you deserve. A Thanksgiving that truly reflects your independence and your status." Courtney rolled her eyes. "Stop being dramatic, Winston. Just go home." "I will," I said. "Goodbye, Marcus." I turned around and walked back to my car. I did not look back. I threw the expensive prime rib into the trash can at the end of the driveway with a heavy thud. It felt symbolic. I was throwing away my investment. I got into my old sedan and started the engine. My hands were shaking not from cold but from rage. A cold, calculating rage. I did not drive to my small apartment. I drove straight to the Peninsula Hotel downtown. I valet parked my 10-year-old car next to the Lamborghinis and Ferraris. I walked up to the front desk. "I need the penthouse suite for the week," I told the receptionist. "And bring me a bottle of your oldest bourbon." Once I was in the room looking out over the city lights of Chicago, I sat down in a leather armchair. I poured a glass of bourbon neat. I took a sip and let the burn settle my nerves. Then I pulled out my phone. I dialed a number I had not called in months. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. "Levi Cohen here." "Levi, it is Winston." "The Duke." Levi said, his voice brightening. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "It is late, Winston. Everything okay? No, Levi, everything is not okay, but it is about to be corrected. What do you need, Winston?" "I need you to open the vault, Levi. I need you to pull the file on the Bishop Family Trust." There was a pause on the line, the sound of paper shuffling. "You mean the operating file for Marcus and Courtney? The one that covers the mortgage, the cars, and the stipends?" "That is the one. What do you want to change, Winston? Do you want to reduce the monthly allowance?" "No," I said, taking another sip of bourbon. "I do not want to reduce it. I want to kill it." "Kill it?" Levi asked, his voice dropping a clear octave. "Winston, are you sure? That covers everything. The house note, the vehicle leases, the platinum credit cards, the utility bills. If we kill it, the automated system sends immediate stop payment notices to all vendors. It triggers the default clauses. I know exactly what it triggers, Levi. I wrote the clauses, remember. But Winston, it is 3 days before Thanksgiving. I know what day it is, Levi. They banned me from the table. They told me I was not good enough to eat the food I paid for. They told me to go eat with my own kind." There was a heavy silence on the line. "Levi and I have been friends for 40 years. He knows what I went through to build this fortune. He knows how much I loved Beatrice. He knows how much I spoiled Marcus trying to make up for the hard times. Say no more, Winston Levi said. His voice was hard now, professional. The Jauthuk Omega, the complete severance package. Execute it, I said. Right now, tonight. I want them to wake up to a new reality. Consider it done. I am logging into the mainframe now. I am revoking the Amex Black authorizations first. Then I am notifying the bank to freeze the mortgage auto-pay. Then I am sending the repo orders for the Range Rover and the Porsche to the recovery agency. They are company assets, after all. That is right, I said. They are company cars for company employees. And as of tonight, Marcus and Courtney are no longer employees of the Bishop Trust. Anything else, Winston? Yes. Draft the eviction notice. The clause regarding moral turpitude and disrespect to the grantor. They violated Section 4, Paragraph 2. The disrespect clause. Levi chuckled dryly. I never thought you would actually use that one. Neither did I, Levi. Neither did I. But life is full of surprises. I hung up the phone. I sat there in the dark watching the lights of the city. I thought about the first time I held Marcus in my arms. I thought about how Beatrice made me promise to take care of him. I wiped a single tear from my eye. I am taking care of him. Beatrice, I whispered to the empty room. I am teaching him the most important lesson a man can learn. You cannot bite the hand that feeds you and expect to keep eating. I finished my bourbon. I went to sleep on the high thread count sheets of the hotel bed. I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing against the nightstand. It was buzzing so hard it was dancing across the wood. I looked at the screen. Marcus, 5 missed calls. Courtney, 12 missed calls. Then a text message from Courtney. What did you do? My card was declined at the spa. This is not funny, Winston. Fix it now. I smiled. I put the phone on silent and ordered room service. Eggs Benedict and fresh coffee. I was just pouring my second cup when the hotel room phone rang. Mr. Bishop, the concierge, said, I apologize for the disturbance, but there is a woman down here in the lobby. She is quite agitated. She says she is your daughter-in-law. She is demanding to see you. She is screaming, sir. I took a bite of my eggs. They were delicious. Tell her I am in a meeting, I said calmly. Sir, she is threatening to run past security. She says her car is gone. She says it was stolen from her driveway this morning. Oh, it was not stolen, I said, dabbing my mouth with the linen napkin. It was repossessed. Tell security to hold her. I will come down when I am finished with my breakfast. I took my time. I dressed in my best suit, the blue one. I put on my gold cufflinks. I brushed my gray hair until it shone. I looked like the Duke. When I finally stepped out of the elevator into the lobby 45 minutes later, it was a scene of chaos. Courtney was standing there, her hair disheveled, her face pale and blotchy without her usual heavy makeup. She was wearing a tracksuit and she looked small. She looked terrified. When she saw me, she lunged forward, but a large security guard stepped in her path. Winston, she shrieked. Her voice cracked. It was not the haughty voice from last night. It was the voice of someone who had just looked into the abyss. Winston, what have you done? The bank called. They said the mortgage is in default. They said we have 30 days to vacate. And my car. My car is gone. I walked up to her slowly. I clasped my hands behind my back. I looked at her with the same cold indifference she had shown me at the door. Hello, Courtney, I said. I thought you were busy preparing for your sophisticated dinner. What are you doing here bothering a loud old man? Fix this, she pleaded, grabbing my sleeve. Marcus is at the office, but his access badge did not work. Security escorted him out. He is freaking out, Winston. You have to fix this. We have guests coming tomorrow. The board members. I gently removed her hand from my sleeve as if she were a piece of lint. I cannot fix it, Courtney, I said. I am just a retired truck driver. I do not understand high finance. I only understand that when you ban the investor from the board meeting, the investment usually dries up. Please, she sobbed. Everyone was looking at us. The hotel guests, the staff. For the first time, she was the one causing a scene. She was the embarrassment. Go home, Courtney, I said, turning my back on her. If you still have one, walk home. It will give you time to think about the aesthetic of your new life. I walked away toward the hotel restaurant for a second cup of coffee, leaving her crying in the lobby. The war had officially begun, and I had fired the first nuclear missile. But I knew this was just the beginning. Courtney was a snake, and snakes bite back when they are cornered. She would try to hurt me. She would try to weaponize the only thing I still cared about, my granddaughter Zoe. I sat down at the table and opened the morning paper. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from Levi. Phase 1 is complete, Winston, but you should know Marcus just called my office. He was crying, but then he started yelling. He said Courtney is going to go to the press. She is going to say you are senile. She is going to say you are abusing them financially. She is planning to play the victim card hard. I chuckled low in my throat. Let her try, Levi, I whispered to myself. Let her try. She forgets that before I was a rich man, I was a street fighter, and the Duke never loses. This Thanksgiving was going to be very interesting indeed. The glow of the laptop screen was the only light in the penthouse suite. It was 3 a.m, and the city of Chicago was asleep, but I was wide awake. I sat there in my silk robe staring at the digital dashboard of the Bishop Family Trust. It was a complex web of accounts transfers and standing orders that I had built over 10 years to ensure my son and his wife never felt the cold wind of poverty. I had set it up to be a safety net. But looking at the numbers now, I realized I had not built a net. I had built a hammock. A hammock where they swung lazily back and forth, drinking wine and judging the man who wove the ropes. My finger hovered over the enter key. I took a sip of cold water. My hand did not shake. Yesterday at the door of the mansion, when Courtney looked at me like I was something she had stepped in, I felt a crack in my heart. But now, in the silence of this hotel room, that crack was filling up with concrete. I clicked the mouse. Access denied. That was the first domino. I had just revoked Courtney's administrative access to the main checking account. She could no longer see the balance. She could no longer transfer funds to cover her shopping sprees. I moved to the next tab. The credit cards, specifically the American Express Centurion card, the black card. It is a piece of titanium that screams power. Courtney loved that card more than she loved her own husband. She used it to buy her way into social circles that would otherwise laugh at her. I pulled up the transaction history. Just yesterday, she had spent $4,000 on floral arrangements for a dinner I was banned from. $4,000 on flowers that would die in 3 days while she told me I was not good enough to sit at her table. I highlighted the account. Status active. I clicked the drop-down menu. Select reason for closure. I typed 2 words, misuse of funds. Click, status suspended. I watched the little loading circle spin. It was hypnotic. With that one click, I had turned her from a socialite into a woman with a piece of useless metal in her purse. But I was not done. I navigated to the mortgage portal. The house. That beautiful colonial sprawling estate on the North Shore. The purchase price was $2.5 million. I had put down 40%, and the trust paid the monthly mortgage of $12,000 automatically. Marcus and Courtney never even saw the bill. They probably thought houses just paid for themselves like magic. I went to the autopay settings, cancel autopay, confirm yes. Then I went a step further. I contacted the private lender, a man I had done business with for 30 years. I sent a secure message, call the note. They are in violation of the occupancy clause. Initiate foreclosure proceedings if payment is not received in full by close of business tomorrow. They would not be able to pay. I knew for a fact Marcus had less than $500 in his personal checking account. He spent every dime of his salary on watches and dinners trying to keep up with Courtney's lifestyle. Finally, the cars. The Range Rover autobiography she drove to yoga, the Porsche 911 he drove to the golf course. Both were leased under Bishop Logistics, my old company. Technically, they were fleet vehicles. I opened the fleet management software. Vehicle 104 and Vehicle 105. Status active. I changed it to stolen/unauthorized use. I authorized immediate recovery. I closed the laptop. The room went dark. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there in the suburbs, Courtney was sleeping peacefully in Egyptian cotton sheets, dreaming of her perfect Thanksgiving dinner. She had no idea that the roof over her head, the car in her driveway, and the card in her wallet were all smoke, and I had just turned on the fan. I went back to bed, but I did not sleep. I lay there waiting for the sun to rise, waiting for the fallout. Morning came with a gray sky. I ordered coffee and sat in the velvet armchair by the window, waiting. I did not have to wait long. At 10 in the morning, Courtney was scheduled for a pre-holiday treatment at the Sanctuary, a spa that charged more for a facial than most people made in a week. I knew her schedule because I paid for the appointments. I could picture it clearly. She would be there with her friends. Let us call them Tiffany and Heather, women who wore diamonds to the gym. Courtney would be holding court telling them about how she had to handle the difficult situation with her father-in-law. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall. But I got the next best thing. My phone buzzed. It was an alert from the credit card company. Transaction declined. The Sanctuary Spa. Amount $850. I smiled. 10 seconds later, another alert. Transaction declined. The Sanctuary Spa. Amount $850. She was trying again. She probably told the receptionist to wipe the chip. She probably laughed it off. Oh, these machines are so temperamental. 30 seconds later. Transaction declined. Now the panic would be setting in. The receptionist would be looking at her with that polite pity that rich people hate more than anything. Her friends would be exchanging glances. Is Courtney having money trouble? I thought she said they were wealthy. My phone rang. It was Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Marcus. Voicemail. Then a text came through from Marcus. Dad, Courtney is freaking out. She is at the spa and her card is not working. She says the bank froze it. Did you forget to transfer the money this month? Call me ASAP. Forget. He thought I forgot. He thought the man who managed logistics for 1,000 trucks across the continent forgot to pay a bill. I typed a reply, but I did not send it. Not yet. I wanted the pressure to build. While Courtney was arguing with the receptionist at the spa trying to find another card that worked, the tow trucks were rolling up to the mansion. I had timed it perfectly. The housekeeper would be there. She would see the large flatbed trucks backing into the driveway. She would see the men in coveralls hooking chains to the pristine white Range Rover. I received a photo from the tow truck driver, a guy named Sal, who used to work for me. It was a picture of the Range Rover lifted high in the air, tilted at a 45-degree angle like a dead beast. The caption read, "Package secured, boss." Picking up the Porsche next. I texted back. Good work, Sal. Drop them at the warehouse. Back at the spa. Courtney must have finally used a debit card from a secret account she thought I did not know about. Or maybe one of her friends took pity on her and paid the bill. That would have stung her pride more than the decline. She walked out of the spa, her skin glowing from the facial, but her eyes wild with panic. She reached into her purse for her keys. She pressed the unlock button on her key fob. Nothing happened. Because her car was currently suspended 5 feet in the air on the back of Sal's truck halfway down the highway. Wait. She had driven the Range Rover to the spa. I checked the GPS tracker. Ah. Sal had picked it up right from the spa parking lot. That was even better. I imagined her walking out to the parking spot, the empty space where her symbol of status used to be. She would spin around looking for it. She would think it was stolen. She would reach for her phone to call the police. But then she would see the sticker on the ground, the bright orange sticker the repo men leave behind. Contact Bishop Logistics for vehicle recovery. That is when she knew. It was not a glitch. It was not a mistake. It was a targeted strike. My phone started blowing up. Courtney calling. Marcus calling. Courtney calling again. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. I finished my coffee. I put on my coat and decided to go for a walk along the lake. The cold air felt good. It felt clean. An hour later, I got a notification from my security system. The system installed at my old apartment, the small 2-bedroom flat in the gritty part of town that I kept as a decoy, the place I told them I lived, so they would think I was just getting by. Camera 01 motion detected, front door. I opened the app on my phone. The video feed showed a woman banging on the peeling green paint of the door. It was Courtney. She had taken a taxi to the hood. She looked out of place in her designer coat and spa-fresh face standing on a porch littered with old flyers. She pounded on the door with her fist. "Winston," she screamed. "I know you are in there. Open this door." She kicked the door. Her expensive boot left a scuff mark. "You cannot do this," she yelled. "You cannot just cut us off. We have a life. We have obligations." A neighbor passed by on the sidewalk, a young man in a hoodie. He looked at her like she was crazy. She flinched, pulling her coat tighter. She was terrified of the neighborhood where I grew up, the neighborhood that made me. She pulled out her phone and dialed my number again. On the screen, I watched her press the phone to her ear. I watched my own phone light up in my hand. I declined the call. On the video screen, she screamed in frustration and threw her phone into her purse. She leaned her forehead against the dirty door. "Please," she whispered, and the microphone picked it up. "Please, Winston, we are ruined." I watched her slide down the door until she was crouching on the dirty porch mat. The same woman who stood in the doorway of a mansion 24 hours ago barring my entry was now begging for entry into a shack. She realized then that the door was locked, and no one was coming to open it. She realized that the pipeline of cash, the golden umbilical cord she had been feeding on for 10 years, had been severed. She looked around the empty street. Her eyes were wide. She looked like a child who had lost her parents in a crowd. But she was not a child. She was a grown woman who had made a choice. She chose disrespect, and now she was collecting the dividend of that investment. I closed the app. I walked into a high-end steakhouse near the hotel. "Table for one," I told the host. "And bring me the wine list." I was going to have a very good lunch, but I knew this was far from over. Courtney was cornered, and a cornered animal does not just cry, it bites. She would go back to Marcus. She would spin a web of lies. She would try to turn my son against me completely. Let her try. I had one more card to play, a bill for $4.2 million, and it was due today. I sat in the velvet armchair of the hotel suite watching the steam rise from my cup of black coffee. My phone lay on the mahogany table, vibrating against the wood like an angry hornet. It was Marcus again. This was his 10th call in the last hour. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. I wanted to hear the tone of his voice. I wanted to hear if there was any remorse, any realization of the insult he had allowed his wife to throw at me. I pressed the speakerphone button to listen to the message. "Dad, pick up the phone." Marcus's voice filled the quiet room. It was not the voice of a son worried about his father. It was the voice of a spoiled child whose toy had stopped working. "Dad, seriously, what is going on? The bank is saying there is a hold on the accounts. Courtney is at the spa and her card got declined." "It is embarrassing, Dad. Did you forget to authorize the transfer this month? You know how the system gets glitches sometimes. Call the bank and fix it. Courtney is freaking out and I do not have time for this today. Call me back." Click. I sat back and shook my head slowly. The denial was breathtaking. He actually thought this was a glitch. He thought I was just a senile old man who forgot to press a button. He could not conceive that the faucet which had hydrated his lifestyle for a decade could ever be turned off on purpose. He thought the money was a natural resource like air or sunlight, something he was entitled to just for existing. I looked at my watch. It was 2 in the afternoon. According to the schedule Courtney had prattled on about weeks ago, today was her exclusive pre-Thanksgiving tea party. She had invited the wives of the charity board members to the house. It was her chance to show off the renovations I paid for and the art collection I bought. I picked up my iPad. I logged into the smart home main control system. I had installed it myself 3 years ago, insisting that a house that size needed central management. Of course, they never learned how to use it. They just shouted commands at Alexa and expected magic. I saw the status of the house. Interior temperature 72 degrees, lighting scene, afternoon ambience, music system playing classical playlist in the drawing room, fireplace gas line active. It looked cozy, it looked expensive, it looked like a setting for people who respected their elders. But that was not who lived there. I navigated to the Master Utilities tab. The electric bill was in my name. The gas bill was in my name. The internet service provider account was in my name. I selected the option for service suspension. "Are you sure you wanted to disconnect service to this address?" "Yes." "Reason for disconnection?" "Owner request. Vacating premises." I pressed confirm. I leaned back and closed my eyes, imagining the scene. At that exact moment in the sprawling living room of the Bishop estate, Courtney would be holding a delicate porcelain teacup. She would be laughing that fake laugh she uses with rich people, throwing her head back just enough to show off her diamond necklace. The room would be warm, bathed in the soft glow of the chandeliers. And then, darkness. The crystal chandeliers would flicker and die. The soft classical music would cut out, leaving a jarring silence. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen would stop. The gas fireplace, which added that touch of old-world charm, would hiss once and extinguish as the safety valve tripped. I could see it clearly, the confusion. The guests looking around nervously. Courtney freezing mid-laugh. "Oh dear," she would say, forcing a smile. "It must be a power outage in the neighborhood. These storms, you know." She would rush to the window expecting to see the whole street dark. But she would see the neighbor's house blazing with light. She would see the street lamps humming. The darkness was only on her. It was a targeted darkness. Back in my hotel room, I watched the iPad screen. System offline. Connection lost. I poured myself another cup of coffee. The coffee tasted bitter, but the satisfaction was sweet. An hour passed. My phone started ringing again. But this time it was not just a call, it was a barrage. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. I picked up the phone and listened to the latest voicemail from Marcus. Dad, pick up. The power is out. The whole house is dark. Courtney has guests here. Dad. The security system is down, the heating is off, and it is freezing. I called the electric company and they said the account holder canceled the service. What is wrong with you? Fix this immediately. He still did not get it. He was angry now, he was yelling, but he still thought he could order me around. He still thought I was his employee. I decided it was time to let him stew for a bit longer. I took a shower, I shaved, and I put on a fresh shirt. I was preparing for the next phase. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the tea party had turned into a disaster. I learned the details later from the housekeeper Maria, who I had tipped generously for years. When the house went dark and the temperature started to drop, the guests did not stay long. Rich people do not like discomfort. They made polite excuses, clutching their fur coats and fleeing the cold, dark tomb that the mansion had become. Courtney was left standing in the foyer, holding a candlestick, looking like a ghost. Her perfect afternoon was ruined. Her reputation as the perfect hostess was tarnished. When Marcus finally arrived home, having taken a humiliating Uber ride because his Porsche was sitting in my warehouse, he walked into a war zone. "Where is he?" Courtney screamed. Her voice echoed off the cold marble walls. "Where is that senile old lunatic?" Marcus tried to calm her down. "Honey, I am calling him. He is not answering. I think he is having some sort of episode." "Maybe he is confused." "Confused?" Courtney shrieked, throwing the candlestick across the room. It clattered loudly against the floor. "He is not confused, Marcus. He canceled the power. He canceled the credit cards. He stole the cars. This is malicious. He is doing this on purpose." Marcus shook his head. "No, Court. You do not know him. He loves us. He dotes on us. He probably just pressed the wrong button on his computer. He is 70 years old. He probably forgot to pay the bill and is too embarrassed to answer the phone." "You are an idiot," Courtney spat. She walked up to him and poked him hard in the chest. "Your father is vindictive. He is punishing us because I told him the truth, because I told him he does not fit in." Marcus looked at her stunned. "You really think he would cut off our electricity because you uninvited him to dinner? That is insane." "It is not insane, it is spite," Courtney yelled. "And you are going to fix it. You are going to find him wherever he is hiding. You are going to drag him back here. You are going to make him turn the lights back on, and you are going to make him apologize to me on his knees. But I do not know where he is," Marcus stammered. "Find him," Courtney roared. "Go to his apartment. Go to that dump he lives in. Drag him out by his collar if you have to. I am not spending Thanksgiving in the dark. Marcus, fix this, or do not bother coming back." Marcus grabbed his coat. He was shivering partly from the cold and partly from fear. He had never seen Courtney like this. The mask of the sophisticated socialite had slipped completely, revealing the snarling face of entitlement underneath. He ran out of the house. He called an Uber again. He did not go to my apartment, though. He knew I would not be there if I was dodging calls. He went to the one place where he knew business was always conducted, the law offices of Cohen and Stein. Levi Cohen had been my attorney since before Marcus was born. Levi was the one who drafted the trust. Levi was the one who bailed Marcus out of trouble in college. Marcus looked at Levi as a benevolent uncle figure. He thought he could just waltz in and get Levi to fix the clerical error. I was not at Levi's office, but I was on the speakerphone listening in silence. I heard the door to Levi's office burst open. Marcus did not even knock. "Levi, thank God you are here," Marcus said, breathless and frantic. "You have to help me. Dad has lost his mind. He cut the power to the house. The cards are dead. Courtney is hysterical. You have to access the trust accounts and override his commands. He is obviously having a mental breakdown." I heard the sound of Levi shifting in his leather chair. Levi is a calm man. He speaks softly, which forces you to lean in and listen. "Sit down," Marcus Levi said. His voice was not warm. It was steel wrapped in velvet. "I do not have time to sit," Marcus yelled. "I need you to fix the bank accounts. Sit down," Levi barked. The room went silent. I heard the creak of the chair as Marcus finally sat. Levi sighed. "Marcus, this is not a breakdown. This is not a glitch. And I cannot override the commands because I am the one who executed them." What? Marcus whispered. You Why? Because your father instructed me to, Levi said. But why? Marcus sounded like a child on the verge of tears. We did not do anything. Courtney just told him that we wanted a private Thanksgiving. That is all. We just wanted one holiday without him making a scene. Levi let out a dry, humorless laugh. Is that what you call it? A private holiday. You banned him from his own property, Marcus. You insulted the man who put the clothes on your back. So he cuts off the lights, Marcus protested. That is an overreaction. It is abusive. Levi slammed a heavy file folder onto the desk. The sound echoed through the speakerphone like a gunshot. This is not abuse, Marcus Levi said. This is accounting. What is that? Marcus asked, staring at the file. This, Levi said, opening the folder, is a bill. A bill? Yes, a notice of debt and demand for repayment. You see, Marcus, for the last 10 years your father has covered your living expenses. The house, the cars, the vacations, the credit cards. In your mind, those were gifts. But legally, under the terms of the Bishop Family Trust, they were conditional loans. Loans. Marcus's voice cracked. But he never said, "It is in the paperwork you signed when you turned 25, Levi interrupted. The paperwork you did not bother to read because you were too busy planning your honeymoon in Bali. Clause 14, Section B clearly states that all disbursements are interest-free loans contingent upon the beneficiary maintaining cordial and respectful familial relations with the grantor. Marcus was silent. He was paralyzed. Yesterday, Levi continued, his voice cold and precise, you violated that clause. When you allowed your wife to ban Winston from the table and you stood there and said nothing, you triggered the default mechanism. The loans are now due. How much? Marcus stammered. Levi flipped to the last page of the document. $4,250,000. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the sound of a world crashing down. That is impossible, Marcus whispered. We do not have that kind of money. You know we don't. I know, Levi said, closing the folder, which is why I have also prepared this. He slid another paper across the desk. What is this? Marcus asked weakly. An eviction notice, Levi said. You have 30 days to vacate the property. The house is being seized as collateral to offset a portion of the debt. But it is Thanksgiving, Marcus cried. You cannot do this on Thanksgiving. Levi leaned forward. Marcus looked him in the eye. You wanted a Thanksgiving without your father, Levi said. Congratulations, Marcus. You got exactly what you asked for. Now get out of my office. You are trespassing. I heard the chair scrape against the floor as Marcus stood up. He stumbled out of the office without another word. I pressed the mute button on my phone. I looked out the window at the city skyline. It was starting to snow. The denial was over. Now the reality would set in. Marcus was walking out into the cold with a $4 million debt on his shoulders, and he had to go home and tell Courtney that not only was the party over, but they were about to lose the dance floor. I took a sip of my coffee. It was cold now, but for the first time all day, it tasted good. Phase 2 was complete. But I wasn't done yet. They still had their pride. They still thought they could spin this. They still thought they were the victims. It was time to take away their last hiding place. It was time to expose the truth about where all that money had really gone, and specifically what Courtney had done with the college fund I set up for Zoe. I picked up the phone and dialed my private investigator, Dante. Dante, I said, it is time. Bring me the file on the gambling debts. It was time to light a match and burn the rest of the lies down. The speakerphone on my hotel desk was the only connection I had to the life I was systematically dismantling. I sat there with my hands folded, staring at the device, visualizing the scene playing out 5 miles away in the high-rise office of my attorney, Levi Cohen. I knew that office well. It was a room designed to intimidate, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline and a mahogany desk that cost more than the house I grew up in. On one side of that desk sat Levi, a man with a mind like a steel trap. On the other side sat my son Marcus, a man who had never stepped into a trap he did not set for himself. I heard the rustle of paper. It was a sound I knew well. It was the sound of accountability. Marcus was breathing hard. I could hear the shallow, rapid breaths of a man who was drowning on dry land. He had just been told that the bank accounts were frozen, the credit cards were dead, and the power to his mansion had been cut. He was expecting Levi to tell him it was a mistake. He was waiting for the magic wand to wave and make his comfortable reality return. But Levi did not have a magic wand. He had a ledger. I listened as Levi cleared his throat. It was a dry, dusty sound. Marcus Levi said, his voice devoid of any emotion. "We need to review the financial structure of your arrangement with the Bishop Family Trust." "Arrangement?" Marcus sputtered. "What arrangement? It is my trust fund, Levi. It is my money. Dad put it there for me." "That is a common misconception," Levi replied smoothly. I heard the slap of a heavy file folder hitting the desk. "The trust was established by Winston Bishop. Winston Bishop is the sole grantor. You and Courtney are beneficiaries. But being a beneficiary is a privilege, Marcus, not a right." "And privileges come with conditions," condition Marcus asked. His voice was trembling. "I never agreed to conditions." "You did," Levi said. 10 years ago. On your 28th birthday, you signed the master promissory note. Do you remember?" I closed my eyes and went back to that day. I remembered it clearly. Marcus had rushed into the office late for his own birthday lunch. He was talking about a trip to the Maldives. He signed the stack of papers I put in front of him without reading a single word. He just asked where to sign so he could get the keys to his new car. He signed away his freedom for a Porsche, and he did not even look at the fine print. "I do not remember any note," Marcus said. "I just signed some tax papers." "These were not tax papers," Levi corrected him. "This was a contract that stated every penny dispensed to you over the monthly base stipend was classified as a no-interest loan, a loan callable at any time at the discretion of the grantor." "A loan," Marcus whispered. The word hung in the air like toxic smoke. "Yes," Levi continued. "Let us review the balance, shall we?" I heard pages turning. Levi began to read, and as he read, I could picture the color draining from my son's face. Item 1. Down payment on the property at 400 Lakeshore Drive, $1.2 million. Item 2. Monthly mortgage payments for 120 months. $1.44 million. Item 3. Renovation of the master suite, requested by Courtney Bishop, including imported Italian marble and gold-plated fixtures. $350,000. Item 4. Purchase of 2 luxury vehicles plus insurance and maintenance. $280,000. Item 5. Miscellaneous lifestyle expenses including travel, dining, and clothing allowances. $800,000. Levi paused. The silence was deafening. I took a sip of water, but my throat felt dry. Hearing the numbers read out loud was staggering even for me. I had spent a fortune trying to buy my son's happiness, trying to buy his respect. And all I had bought was his contempt. Grand total, Levi announced, his voice dropping an octave. $4,270,000. I heard a sound like a chair scraping violently against the floor. Marcus must have jumped up. "That is insane," Marcus shouted. "You are saying I owe Dad $4 million. That is impossible. He gave that to us. Those were gifts. He never said I had to pay him back. He is my father, Levi. He is not a bank." "He is both," Levi said calmly. "And until yesterday, he was content to let those loans sit on the books indefinitely. He was content to let the debt be forgiven upon his death. That was the plan, Marcus. It was all going to be yours free and clear. So what changed?" Marcus demanded. "Why is he doing this now?" Levi's voice turned icy. I leaned in closer to the speakerphone. This was the moment, the lesson. Paragraph 4, Section B. Levi said, reading from the document, "The moral clause." "I do not care about some stupid clause," Marcus yelled. "You should," Levi snapped, "because it is the reason you are now destitute. The clause states that the forbearance of these loans is contingent upon the beneficiary maintaining a relationship of mutual respect and dignity with the grantor. It specifically prohibits actions that cause public humiliation, reputational damage, or emotional distress to the grantor." There was a pause. Marcus was processing it. "Emotional distress," Marcus muttered. "Because of Thanksgiving, because Courtney uninvited him, because your wife told the man who built the roof over her head that he was not good enough to sit under it," Levi said, "and you stood there and let her do it. You allowed your father to be humiliated in front of staff and neighbors. You treated the Duke like a beggar at your gate. That, Marcus, is a violation of the contract. But," Marcus stammered, "it was just a misunderstanding. We can fix it. I will call him." I will tell Courtney to apologize." "It is too late for apologies," Levi said, closing the folder. "The default has been triggered. The loans have been called." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. His voice was so small now, so fragile. "It means," Levi said, "that the full balance of $4,270,000 is due immediately." Immediately, Marcus squeaked. "I do not have $4 million, Levi. I have $400 in my checking account." "I am aware of your liquidity issues," Levi said, "which brings us to the collateral." Collateral. The house, Marcus, the cars, the art on the walls. It is all collateral for the loan. Since you cannot pay cash, we are exercising our right to seize the assets. Seize the house. Marcus gasped. "You cannot be serious. It is Thanksgiving in 2 days. We have people coming. We have a life there. You have 30 days to vacate," Levi said, ignoring the plea. "But given the severity of the breach and the fact that you have already proven to be hostile tenants, we are moving for an expedited timeline. However, your father is a generous man." "He is?" Marcus asked, hope creeping back into his voice. "Yes," Levi said. "He is giving you a choice. You can pay the $4.2 million in full within 30 days. Or you can surrender the deed to the house voluntarily by tomorrow morning and vacate the premises immediately. If you choose the second option, he will forgive the remaining balance of the debt." "Leave." "By tomorrow," Marcus whispered. "But where will we go? The accounts are frozen. We have no money for a hotel. Courtney will die, Levi. She will literally die if she has to leave that house." "Then I suggest she starts packing," Levi said coldly, "because if she is still in that house on Thanksgiving Day, the sheriff will be there to escort her out. And Marcus, I promise you that will be a scene far more embarrassing than having your father eat turkey at your table." I heard Marcus sobbing. It was a pathetic sound. He was 38 years old, crying in a lawyer's office because the free ride was over. I wanted to feel sorry for him. I wanted to pick up the phone and tell Levi to stop, to tell him it was enough. But then I remembered Courtney's face. I remembered the way she looked at my shoes. I remembered Marcus looking at the floor, ashamed of me. I stayed silent. Levi let him cry for a moment. Then he spoke again. "Here is the notice of default," Levi said. "And here is the voluntary surrender of deed. Take them. Go home to your wife. Explain to her the true cost of her arrogance." I heard the crinkle of paper being shoved into a hand. I heard footsteps dragging toward the door. "One more thing," Marcus Levi called out. What Marcus choked out. "The Porsche," Levi said. "The one in the warehouse. Your father says you can come pick up your personal items from the trunk, but bring a box. You are not driving it home." The door closed. The line went silent for a second before Levi's voice came through, clear and professional. "It is done, Winston. He is on his way home." "How did he look?" I asked, my voice rough. "Like a man who just found out the earth is not solid," Levi said. "He is broken, Winston." "Are you sure about this? The foreclosure notice?" "That is the nuclear option." "I am sure, Levi," I said. "They wanted to live independently. They wanted to be high society. Well, in high society you pay your bills, and their bill is past due." I hung up the phone. I walked to the window. The snow was falling harder now, covering Chicago in a white blanket. Somewhere out there, Marcus was in an Uber heading back to a dark, cold mansion holding a piece of paper that said his life was a lie. I felt a heaviness in my chest. No father wants to destroy his son, but sometimes you have to burn the field to save the soil. Marcus had been poisoned by Courtney's greed and my own enabling. This was the antidote, and the antidote always tastes bitter. I checked the time. It was late afternoon. Courtney would be waiting for him. She would be waiting for him to come back with the power turned on and the credit cards reactivated. Instead, he was bringing her a $4 million invoice and an eviction notice. I almost felt sorry for him. He was about to walk into a hurricane. But then I poured myself another bourbon. I remembered the prime rib in the trash can. "Let it burn," I whispered to the glass. Let it all burn. The real show was just beginning. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving Eve, and while they were packing boxes by candlelight, I had one more surprise for them. I was not just taking the house. I was taking the one thing Courtney used to hide her shame. I picked up my phone and opened the gallery. I looked at the picture of the pearl necklace my wife Beatrice used to wear, the one Courtney swore she lost, the one I found listed on an auction site under a pseudonym. Tomorrow I would reclaim that too. The bill had been presented. Now it was time for collection. I poured myself another glass of amber liquid and watched the ice cube dissolve. It was the only thing moving in the silent hotel suite. I thought I had bought myself a moment of peace. I thought sending Marcus home with a foreclosure notice would force them into a quiet, frantic packing session. I underestimated the desperation of a narcissist who feels her stage lights dimming. My iPad lit up. Then it pinged. Then it started vibrating across the glass table like it was having a seizure. Notification. Facebook Live. Courtney Vance Bishop is live. Notification. TikTok. Courtney's Truth is live. Notification. Twitter. Trending topic. Save Courtney. I picked up the tablet. My hand was steady, but my jaw was tight. I tapped the screen. There she was. My daughter-in-law. She had set the stage perfectly. She was sitting on the floor of the living room wrapped in a thick wool blanket. The room behind her was pitch black because I had cut the power. The only light came from a battery-powered ring light that cast a halo in her tear-filled eyes. She looked small. She looked fragile. She looked nothing like the woman who had sneered at my shoes yesterday. I turned up the volume. Her voice was a raspy whisper. "Hi, guys. I know I look terrible. I have not slept. I am freezing. I do not know where else to turn." She wiped a tear, a single perfect tear that rolled down her cheek. It was a performance worthy of Broadway. I checked the viewer count. 15,000 people were watching. 15,000 strangers were currently sitting in their warm homes inviting my family drama into their living rooms. My father-in-law, Winston Bishop. She paused to let a sob escape. He cut off our power. He froze our bank accounts. He stole our cars. He left me and my husband and our daughter here to freeze in the dark. Comments started flying up the screen. "OMG, that is a monster. Call the police. Who does this to their family?" Courtney leaned into the camera. Her eyes went wide. "But that is not the worst part, guys. The money. I could live without the money. We are simple people. But the hate is what kills me." I took a sip of whiskey. I wondered where she was going with this. "You guys know Marcus is black. And you know I am white. We never thought love saw color. But Winston, he is from a different time. He has always looked at me with this disgust. He calls me..." She hesitated, acting as if she could not bear to say the words. "He calls me an outsider. He told Marcus that he should have married one of his own kind." I slammed the glass down on the table hard enough to crack the coaster. The lie was so bold, so vicious, it took my breath away. I marched with Dr. King in '68. I built a company that employed men and women of every color when other logistics firms were still segregated. And now this woman, this privileged woman who had never worked a day in her life, was painting me as a bigot to garner sympathy points on the internet. But she was not done. She had one more dagger to throw. And the worst part, the reason he is doing this right now, right before Thanksgiving, is because of Zoe. My heart stopped. "Do not bring her into this, Courtney. Do not you dare." "He hates that we have a daughter," she whispered. "He told Marcus that the Bishop name dies with a girl. He said unless I gave him a grandson, I was useless. He said Zoe was a waste of resources. That is why he cut the college fund. Because he does not think a girl needs an education." I felt a roar building in my chest. It was a primal sound. I loved Zoe more than life itself. The college fund was the only thing I had kept sacred, the only thing I had not touched in this purge. She was lying. She was using my granddaughter as a human shield. The comments on the screen were moving so fast now they were a blur. "Boycott Bishop Logistics. Find this man and end him. He is a misogynist pig. Protect Zoe at all costs." Courtney looked into the lens, her face a mask of tragic heroism. "Please, guys, we have nowhere to go. He is evicting us tomorrow. If anyone can help, if anyone can donate to our GoFundMe linked below so we can just get a hotel room and some food, we would be so grateful. We just want to survive." She ended the video. I sat there in the silence of the penthouse. My blood was boiling, but my mind was cold. She had just declared total war. She had weaponized the one thing I could not control, the mob. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the security guard at my old office, the decoy office in the industrial district where I kept a small desk just to maintain appearances. "Mr. Bishop," the guard said, his voice shaky. "You need to stay away from here, sir." "What is happening, Frank?" I asked. "It is bad, sir. About 20 people just showed up. They saw the video. They are throwing rocks. They spray painted the front door. Someone threw a brick through the reception window. Is anyone hurt?" "No, sir, the office is empty." "But they are chanting your name. They are calling you a racist. They are calling you a child abuser. The police are on their way, but sir, it is ugly." I closed my eyes. A brick through the window. That was how it started. That was how it always started. A lie travels halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. Courtney had unleashed a beast she could not control. She thought this would pressure me into giving the money back. She thought I would be scared of the bad publicity. She did not know Winston Bishop. I did not build an empire by flinching when a rock came through the window. I built it by finding out who threw the rock and buying the quarry. I told Frank to lock down the building and go home. Then I picked up my phone and dialed Dante. My private investigator answered on the first ring. He sounded tired but alert. "I saw the video," Winston Dante said. "She is good. I will give her that. She is very good." "She is desperate," I said, poured myself another drink. "She just accused me of being a racist and a misogynist in front of 50,000 people. She just incited a riot at my old office." "I know," Dante said. "My team is scrubbing the comments now, but it is viral, Winston. The narrative is set. You are the villain. The evil, rich father-in-law oppressing the struggling young family." "Let them talk," I said. "The internet has the memory of a goldfish. By next week they will be outraged about a cat stuck in a tree. But Courtney has made a fatal error." "What is that?" "She made it personal. She brought Zoe into it, and she asked for money." I paused, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. "Dante, I want you to go deeper." "Deeper than the gambling debt?" Dante asked. "Much deeper. You saw that performance. That was not just a woman worried about her bills. That was a woman terrified of exposure. She is hiding something, Dante. Something bigger than the 500 grand she lost on crypto. Something she is hiding from Marcus. You think she has a secret life? I think a woman who lies that easily about her family has been practicing for a long time. I want to know who she talks to when Marcus is at work. I want to know where she really goes when she says she is at the charity board meetings. I want you to pull her phone records for the last 5 years. Text messages, deleted emails, GPS history, everything. That is a lot of data, Winston. It will take all night." "Then drink a lot of coffee," I said. "I want ammunition, Dante." She threw a brick at my window. "I want to drop a nuclear bomb on her house." I hung up. I walked to the window and looked out at the snowy streets of Chicago. Somewhere down there in the dark, people were hating me. They were writing think pieces about my toxic masculinity. They were judging a man they had never met based on the lies of a woman who measured her worth in likes and shares. But I felt a strange sense of calm, because I knew the truth. And the truth is a slow-acting poison. Courtney thought she had won this round. She was probably checking her GoFundMe right now, watching the donations roll in from sympathetic strangers. $5 here, $10 there. She was probably calculating how soon she could turn the power back on. But she did not know that every dollar she accepted was fraud. She did not know that by soliciting money based on lies, she was crossing the line from civil dispute to criminal deception. And she definitely did not know that I had the receipt for the pearl necklace. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Marcus. "Dad, please. People are threatening to burn down the office. Just give her what she wants. She promises to take the video down if you reactivate the cards." I stared at the message. Even now he was brokering a deal. Even now he was trying to negotiate with terrorists. I typed a reply. "No negotiation. Tell your wife to enjoy the donations. She will need them for her legal defense fund." I sent it. Then I sat back and waited for Dante to call. I knew he would find something. People like Courtney always leave a trail. They are so arrogant they think no one is watching. They think they are the directors of their own movie. But she forgot one thing. I am the producer, and I just cut the budget. The night was long and the whiskey was smooth. I watched the snow fall and I planned my next move. Tomorrow was the day before Thanksgiving, the day of travel, the day of family reunions. For Courtney, it was going to be the day of reckoning. 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was Dante. "Winston," he said. His voice was different this time. It wasn't tired. It was urgent. "What did you find, Dante? You are going to want to sit down for this." I am sitting. We pulled the deleted cloud backups from her phone. We found a folder she thought she had wiped. It is not just gambling, Winston. What is it? It is another family, Dante said. My hand froze on the glass. What do you mean another family? I mean, she has been paying rent on an apartment in the city for 3 years. An apartment occupied by a man named Julian, and there are photos, Winston. Photos of her, photos of them, and photos of a child, a little boy. I felt the room spin. A child. A boy. Is it Marcus's son? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. No, Dante said. The dates do not match. The boy is 4 years old. She met Marcus 5 years ago. But Winston, she is paying for this boy's private school with money from Zoe's trust fund. The glass in my hand shattered. I didn't even feel the cut. She has a secret child with another man, and she is using my granddaughter's money to support him. That is correct, Dante said. And that is not all. This man, Julian, he is not just a boyfriend, he is her dealer. The crypto losses. They weren't losses, they were laundering. She was washing the money to move it to him. I looked at the blood dripping from my hand onto the white tablecloth. It was bright red. Send it to me, I said. Send me everything. I am sending the file now. What are you going to do, Winston? I am going to buy a debt, I said. And then I am going to introduce Marcus to his wife's other family. I hung up. I wrapped a napkin around my hand. The pain was sharp, but it focused me. Courtney wanted to play the victim. She wanted to tell the world I hated her because she did not give me a grandson. Well, she did have a son, just not with my son. The game had just changed. It was no longer about money. It was about betrayal. Deep, unforgivable betrayal. I looked at the tablet where her video was still looping. Her fake tears. Her plea for help. Cry harder, Courtney, I whispered. You are going to need the practice. The file Dante placed on the glass coffee table was thick. It made a heavy thud that sounded like a coffin lid closing. Outside, the snow was still falling over Chicago, blanketing the city in a deceptive peace. Inside the penthouse suite, the air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and impending doom. Dante looked tired. He had been up all night digging through digital trash cans to find the rot at the center of my family. Drink, I asked him, gesturing to the bottle of bourbon. Double, Dante said, dropping onto the sofa. You're going to need one too, Winston. Maybe 3. I poured the drinks. My hand was steady, but my gut was churning. I had expected affairs. I had expected secret credit cards. I had even expected drugs. But what was in that file was worse because it was so incredibly stupid. I opened the folder. The first page was a summary of trading activity on a cryptocurrency exchange that I had never heard of. The account name was generic, Blue Sky Holdings, LLC. But the funding source was undeniably Courtney. She thinks she is a day trader, Dante said, taking a long pull of his drink. She started 2 years ago, small amounts at first. 5 grand here, 10 grand there. She got lucky early on, made about 50,000 in a month. Beginner's luck, I muttered, turning the page. The worst thing that can happen to a gambler. Exactly. She got hooked. She started believing she was a financial genius. She started telling her friends she was managing a private hedge fund. But then the market turned. I looked at the columns of red ink. It was a bloodbath. Minus 20,000, minus 40,000, minus 100,000. She kept doubling down. Dante explained. She was chasing the loss. She bought into every scam coin and pump and dump scheme on the internet. She lost the down payment for the vacation house. She lost the money for the club membership. And when her personal accounts ran dry, she started looking for other sources. I flipped to the next section. Transfer records. My eyes narrowed. Source: Z Bishop Educational Trust. Amount: $50,000. Date: June 12th. Source: Z Bishop Educational Trust. Amount: $75,000. Date: July 4th. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. The Z Bishop Trust. That was Zoe's money. That was the fund I had set up the day my granddaughter was born. It was locked. It was supposed to be untouchable until she turned 18. How did she get into this? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. I am the trustee. She has no access. She forged your signature, Winston. Dante pulled out a copy of a withdrawal authorization. There it was. My name scrawled at the bottom. It was a good forgery. Not perfect, but good enough for a bank manager who probably just wanted to keep a VIP client happy. I flipped through the pages. The total was at the bottom. $512,000. $500,000. Gone. Vaporized into the digital ether. She had stolen her own daughter's future to pay for her gambling addiction. She is broke, Winston Dante said softly. That is why she panicked when you cut the cards. She is not just worried about the Thanksgiving party, she is worried about the margin calls. The sharks are circling. She owes people who do not use lawyers to collect debts. I closed the file. I felt a strange sense of calm, the kind of calm a soldier feels when he finally sees the enemy clearly. This was no longer a family dispute, this was a crime. Get the car, I told Dante. Where are we going? To the police. No, I said, standing up and buttoning my coat. Not yet. First, I am going to see the only innocent person left in this mess. Take me to St. Jude's Academy. The drive to the private school was silent. I watched the city pass by gray and cold. I thought about Zoe. She was 15 now. Smart. Sensitive. She had Beatrice's eyes and my stubbornness. I had not seen her in 2 weeks because Courtney kept making excuses. She has piano practice. She is studying for finals. She has a cold. Now I knew the truth. Courtney was not keeping her busy. She was keeping her away. She was terrified that Zoe might say something. We pulled up to the wrought iron gates of the academy. It was lunchtime. I knew Zoe usually sat on the stone bench near the library reading. She was a loner like me. I walked onto the campus. The security guard knew me. He nodded respectfully. Mr. Bishop, here to see Zoe. Just a quick visit, I said. Don't announce me. I found her exactly where I expected. She was wrapped in a thick scarf, her breath puffing out in little clouds as she read a paperback book. She looked so much like her grandmother it made my heart ache. Zoe, I called out softly. She looked up. Her eyes went wide. Grandpa! She dropped the book and ran to me. She didn't walk, she ran. She threw her arms around me and buried her face in my wool coat. She was shaking. Hey, now, I said, patting her back. It is okay. I am here. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Mom said you were sick. She said you were in the hospital and we could not visit because it was contagious. I felt a fresh wave of rage. Another lie. I am not sick, sweetheart, I said, brushing a snowflake from her hair. I am perfectly fine, but we need to talk. Your mom, she posted a video online. Did you see it? Zoe looked down at her boots. All the kids saw it, Grandpa. They were whispering about it in homeroom. Mom said you cut us off because you hate us. She said we are going to be homeless. Is it true? I took her hands. They were cold. I realized she was not wearing gloves. I did cut off the money, Zoe. That part is true. But not because I hate you. Never you. I did it because your parents have forgotten how to be adults. They have forgotten how to be honest. Zoe bit her lip. She looked like she was wrestling with something heavy. Something too heavy for a 15-year-old girl. Grandpa, she whispered, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to tell Mom I told you. She said if I told you she would send me to boarding school. My blood ran cold. The threats, the manipulation. I promise, I said. You are safe with me. What is it? Zoe took a deep breath. A few months ago, Mom came into my room. She was crying. She said she needed help. She said Daddy made a bad investment, and we were going to lose the house if she did not find money fast. I squeezed her hands. Go on. She asked me to open the safe in my closet. The one you gave me. The one where I keep the necklace. The world stopped. The necklace. Beatrice's pearls. A triple strand of South Sea pearls with a diamond clasp. It was the first real gift I ever bought my wife when the business finally took off in the 80s. Beatrice wore them every Sunday. She wore them to Marcus's graduation. She was wearing them in the last photo ever taken of her. When she passed, I gave them to Zoe. I told her, these are for your wedding day. Grandma will be watching over you. Zoe started to cry, silent tears that cut tracks through the cold on her cheeks. She took them, Grandpa. She said she just needed to borrow them. She said she was going to get them appraised for insurance, but that was 3 months ago, and last week when I asked for them back, she screamed at me. She said I was selfish for caring about jewelry when the family was drowning. I felt a physical blow to my chest. It was harder than any punch I had ever taken in a union brawl. She sold them. Courtney took the most sacred object in our family history, the physical embodiment of my wife's memory, and she sold it to cover her crypto losses. She threw Beatrice's legacy into a digital slot machine. I pulled Zoe into a hug again. I held her tight so she wouldn't feel me shaking. "It is okay, baby," I whispered. "It is not your fault. You did nothing wrong. I miss Grandma." Zoe sobbed into my coat, "And I miss the pearls. I feel like I lost her all over again." I closed my eyes. Behind my eyelids, I saw red, pure, unadulterated red. For the last 24 hours, I had been operating on logic. I had been a businessman closing a bad deal. I had been a father disciplining a wayward son. But now I was a widower whose wife's grave had been robbed. Logic was gone. Mercy was gone. There was only the scorched earth policy left. I pulled back and looked at Zoe. I wiped her tears with my thumb. "Listen to me, Zoe. Do you trust me?" "Yes, Grandpa." "Good. I want you to go back to class. Finish your day. When you go home tonight, things are going to be very chaotic. Your mom and dad might be yelling. They might be packing." Packing, Zoe asked, fear in her eyes. "Yes, but you do not worry. You pack your bag. Just your favorite things, your books, your laptop. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I promise you we are going to have a real Thanksgiving. And I promise you I will get those pearls back, even if I have to tear this city apart brick by brick." "Really?" she asked. "I give you my word as a bishop," I said. "And a bishop never breaks his word." I watched her walk back into the school building. She looked a little lighter, a little stronger. I walked back to the car. Dante was waiting. He took one look at my face and started the engine without asking. "Back to the hotel?" Dante asked. "No," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It sounded like gravel grinding against steel. "Find out where she sold them, Dante." "The pearls." "Yes. Find out which pawn shop or fence she used. I do not care what it costs. Find them. And then take me to the house," I said. "The house." "You mean the mansion?" "Yes." "But Winston, you are banned, remember? She will call the police if you step foot on the property." "Let her call the police," I said, staring out the window. "I want the police there. I want witnesses. Because I am not going there to eat turkey. I am going there to deliver the bill for the pearls, and the price is going to be her freedom." Dante pulled into traffic. "You are going to have her arrested, Winston, your son's wife, the mother of your grandchild." "She is not a mother," I spat out. "A mother protects her child's future. She stole it. A mother preserves the family history. She pawned it. She is a parasite, Dante. And today, I am the exterminator." "Drive." The car sped up, merging onto the highway toward the wealthy suburbs. The sky was darkening. A storm was coming. But the storm inside the car was already raging. Courtney thought she was playing the victim card. She thought she could cry on TikTok and win. She did not know that I held the trump card. She stole $500,000 from a minor. That is a federal crime. She forged my signature. That is fraud. But selling Beatrice's pearls, that was a death sentence. I took out my phone. I opened the banking app. I looked at the frozen accounts. I was done playing with levers and switches. I was done being the silent wallet in the background. I dialed Levi Cohen. "Levi," I said when he answered. "Winston, did you see the file from Dante?" "I did. It is bad, Winston. Embezzlement, forgery. If we take this to the district attorney, she is looking at 10 years minimum." "Draft the complaint," I said. "Winston, are you sure? Once we file this, there is no going back. Marcus will never forgive you." "Marcus is blind," I said. "He needs to see who he is sleeping with." "Draft the complaint, Levi. And call the sheriff. Tell him to meet me at the Bishop residence in 1 hour. Tell him to bring handcuffs." "Handcuffs," Levi repeated. "You want her walked out in cuffs. I want her walked out in chains," I said. I hung up. I sat back and watched the snowflakes hit the windshield. They looked like little pearls falling from the sky. "I am coming for them, Beatrice," I whispered. "I am coming for them. And God help anyone who stands in my way." The internet is a noisy place. While thousands of strangers were busy typing angry comments on Courtney's video calling me a monster, I was busy doing what I have always done. I was doing business. I did not waste my time replying to comments or recording a defense video. I did not care about the court of public opinion. I cared about the court of law. And to win in a court of law, you do not need likes. You need leverage. I sat in the back of a dimly lit cigar lounge on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of old leather. Across from me sat a man named Jimmy the Gent. He was not a banker. He was not a lawyer. He was the kind of man you went to when the bank said no. He was the man Courtney had turned to when her crypto schemes fell apart and she needed cash fast to keep up appearances. Jimmy looked nervous. He knew who I was. Everyone in Chicago who moved money or freight knew the Duke. Mr. Bishop, Jimmy said, smoothing his tie. I did not know she was your daughter-in-law. If I had known, I never would have extended the credit. It does not matter, Jimmy, I said, placing a check on the table. The check was for $55,000. The principal plus the vigorous interest she owed. I want to buy the paper, Jimmy. I want the promissory note. I want the lien. I want every text message and threatening voicemail you sent her. Jimmy looked at the check. He looked at me. He slid the folder across the table. She is all yours, Mr. Bishop. She is bad news. She missed 3 payments. I was about to send the boys round to repossess her jewelry. You do not need to send the boys, I said, pocketing the folder. I will handle the collection personally. I walked out of that bar with a spring in my step. I now owned Courtney's debt. In the eyes of the law, I was now her creditor. And because she had secured this illegal loan using fraudulent collateral, she was not just in debt, she was in a trap. I got back into the car. Dante was waiting. We got it, I asked. We got it, I said, tapping my breast pocket. Now let us go see what is happening at the auction house. I opened my iPad to check the hidden cameras in the mansion. The power was still out, so the main system was down, but the battery-operated backup cameras in the hallways were still pinging every few minutes. The scene inside the house was pure chaos. It looked like a high-end boutique had exploded. Marcus had just walked in the door. He was wet from the snow, and he looked like a beaten dog. He was holding the eviction notice Levi had given him. Courtney was running around the living room by the light of a flashlight. She had piles of boxes on the floor. Orange boxes. Hermes boxes. What are you doing? Marcus asked, his voice echoing in the cold house. Courtney didn't even look up. She was shoving a $20,000 Birkin bag into a shipping box. I am selling them. Marcus, she screamed. I found a buyer on Instagram, a reseller in Miami. He is wiring me $30,000 for the collection tonight. We need cash, Marcus. We need to get a hotel room. Your father is insane. Marcus dropped his briefcase. He looked at the pile of bags. He looked at his wife. Courtney, he said. Levi told me everything. Courtney froze. She stood up slowly, clutching the leather bag to her chest like a shield. What did he tell you? She hissed. That he is helping your father ruin us. He told me about the debt, Marcus said. He told me about the contract. But Courtney, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth for once. The truth? Courtney laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound. You want the truth. The truth is, your father is a bitter old man who is jealous of our happiness. Stop it, Marcus yelled. He had never yelled at her before. It shocked them both into silence. Marcus took a step closer. I asked Levi if we could use Zoe's trust fund to pay off the house, just temporarily, just until I get my bonus. I watched on the screen as Courtney's face went pale. Even in the dim flashlight beam, I could see the blood drain from her skin. And Levi said something strange. Marcus continued. He said the fund was flagged for irregular activity. He said there were withdrawals. Courtney took a step back. That is a mistake, she said quickly. A bank error. You know how old Levi is. He probably misread the statement. Marcus shook his head. No, Courtney. Levi does not make mistakes. He said $500,000 is gone. He stared at her. The silence stretched out between them. Did you take it? Marcus whispered. Courtney threw the Birkin bag onto the floor. So what if I did? She screamed. I did it for us. I was investing it. I was trying to build a future for us so we did not have to beg your father for scraps. I was going to put it back. Marcus, I just had a run of bad luck. You stole from our daughter, Marcus said. His voice broke. You stole from Zoe. I borrowed it, Courtney yelled. There is a difference. And how dare you judge me? You are the one who cannot support his family. You are the one who lets his father control our lives. If you were a real man, I would not have to gamble on crypto to buy groceries. Marcus looked like he had been slapped. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the cold floor. He put his head in his hands. We are finished, he whispered. We are going to jail. No, we are not, Courtney said, kneeling beside him. Her voice changed instantly. It went from screaming to soothing. She was the manipulator again. Listen to me, baby. We are not going to jail. Your father, he will not press charges. He loves Zoe too much. He won't send her mother to prison. He is just trying to scare us. We just need to leave. We take the money from the bags, we go to my sister's in Florida, and we start over. We just need to get through tonight. Marcus looked up at her. He wanted to believe her. I could see it in his eyes. He was weak. He loved her, and she knew exactly how to play him. But I was done letting her play him. I sat in the car outside the hotel. I picked up my phone. I had one more bullet in the chamber. The bullet Dante had found earlier that day. I opened my email app. I composed a new message to Marcus. Subject: your wife or your mother. I attached 2 files. The first was the receipt from the pawn shop on State Street. The second was a high-resolution photo Dante had taken through the glass case of the shop. It showed a triple strand of South Sea pearls with a vintage diamond clasp. The tag read Vintage Estate Piece. $12,000. I typed a short message. Marcus. She lied about the crypto. She lied about the loan sharks. But this is the lie you cannot forgive. She didn't lose your mother's pearls. She sold them. 3 months ago. She sold Beatrice's memory for a poker chip. Look at the date on the receipt. It was the day of your anniversary. While you were taking her to dinner, she was selling your mother's legacy. You have a choice to make tonight, son. You can stand by the woman who robbed your daughter and desecrated your mother's grave. Or you can stand up and be a bishop. If you leave with her, you are an accomplice. If you stay, you are my son. Choose. I pressed send. I watched the screen. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. Courtney was hugging him, stroking his hair, whispering poison into his ear. We will be fine, baby. We just need to sell the car. We will get away from him. His phone buzzed again. And again. I had set it to send priority alerts. Marcus pulled the phone out. Courtney tried to grab it. Don't look at it, baby. It is just him trying to manipulate you. Marcus pulled away. He looked at the screen. I saw the blue light reflect in his eyes. I saw him open the email. I saw him zoom in on the photo. He stopped breathing. The room was silent except for the wind howling outside. He stood up. He pushed Courtney away. It wasn't a gentle push. It was a shove. Courtney fell back onto the pile of Hermes boxes. What is it? She asked, scared now. Marcus turned the phone around and shoved it in her face. Tell me this is a fake, he roared. His voice shook the walls. Tell me you did not sell my mother's pearls. Courtney looked at the photo. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, looking for a lie. Marcus, listen. They were just sitting in a box. You never look at them. I needed the money to pay off the credit card so you wouldn't find out I was going to buy them back. You sold my mother, Marcus screamed. Tears were streaming down his face now. You sold the only thing I had left of her. He walked over to the table and swept a vase onto the floor. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. Get out, he said. What? Courtney whispered. Get out, Marcus screamed. Get out of this house. Get out of my life. But Marcus, we have nowhere to go. It is snowing. I do not care, Marcus yelled. Go to your dealer. Go to your boyfriend. Go to hell. Just get out before I kill you. Courtney scrambled backward. She grabbed her purse. She grabbed 2 of the Hermes bags. She ran for the door. She did not look back. She ran out into the snow, into the dark night. Marcus stood there in the middle of the ruin of his life. He looked at the door. Then he looked at the phone in his hand. He sank to his knees. He curled into a ball and wept. He wept for his mother. He wept for his wasted years. He wept for the man he used to be. I watched him from the screen. My own eyes were wet. It was the hardest thing I had ever had to do. Breaking my own son's heart to save his soul. I picked up my phone and dialed the sheriff. It is time, I said. She is on the move. She is in a black taxi heading south. Pick her up. What are the charges, Mr. Bishop? The sheriff asked. Grand larceny, I said. Fraud and elder abuse. But sheriff, make sure you tell her who signed the warrant. I want her to know it wasn't the bank. And it wasn't the government. It was the Duke. I closed the laptop. The counterstrike was complete. The enemy was routed. But the war wasn't over. Now I had to rebuild the ruins. I had to go get my son. And I had to bring him home. Not to the mansion, but to the only place that ever really mattered. The truth. I watched the screen of my laptop, and for the first time in my life I wanted to look away. I have seen men broken in business deals. I have seen tough union workers cry when the plant closed down, but I had never seen a man decompose in real time until I watched my son Marcus read that email. The silence in the mansion was heavier than the snow falling outside. Marcus held the phone with a trembling hand. The blue light from the screen illuminated tears that were sliding down his face. He looked at the photo of the pearls. Then he looked at his wife. Courtney was standing by the pile of orange Hermes boxes she had been frantically packing. She knew. She knew the game was over, and like a cornered rat, she decided she wasn't going to beg anymore. She was going to bite. "You sold them," Marcus whispered. His voice was so quiet it barely registered on the microphone. "You sold my mother." Courtney didn't apologize. She didn't drop to her knees. She dropped the act. Her face changed. The soft features of the victimized daughter-in-law hardened into something sharp and ugly. She let out a laugh that sounded like glass breaking. "Oh, grow up, Marcus," she spat. "They are just beads. They are old, calcified beads from a dead woman. We needed the money. I needed the money." "You stole from our daughter," Marcus said, his voice rising. "You stole from me, and you lied. You looked me in the eye, and you lied." Courtney threw her hands up. "I had to lie," she screamed, "because you are too weak to handle the truth. Look at you, Marcus. Look at you crying over jewelry while I am trying to save our lives. I am the only one in this marriage who has any ambition. I am the only one trying to maintain our status while your father tries to drag us back into the gutter." "Our status," Marcus yelled. "What status, Courtney? We are broke. We are frauds. We are living in a house we do not own, spending money we do not have. And whose fault is that?" Courtney stepped closer to him. She poked a manicured finger into his chest. "It is your fault. Because you are useless, Marcus. You are a weak, spineless little boy who never grew up." Marcus looked like he had been slapped. "I gave you everything," he stammered. "I gave you the lifestyle you wanted. You gave me nothing," she hissed. "Your father gave it to us. You are just the delivery boy, Marcus. You are the middleman. Do you really think I married you for your personality? Do you think I married you because you are so smart or so funny?" She leaned in close, her face inches from his. "I married the name Bishop. I married the logistics empire. I married the credit card limit. Without your father's money, you are nothing. You are a zero. You are a middle-aged man with no talent, no drive, and no spine." Marcus stumbled back. He hit the wall. He looked like he couldn't breathe. "I loved you," he whispered. Courtney laughed again. "That is your problem," she said, turning back to her boxes. "You love me. I love the life you promised me. And now that you cannot deliver that life, you are useless to me. So either help me pack these bags and drive me to Florida or get out of my way." Marcus stood there for a long moment. His world had not just cracked, it had shattered. The woman he worshipped had just told him he was nothing more than a wallet, and an empty wallet at that. He didn't scream. He didn't fight back. He just turned around and walked out the door. He didn't take a coat. He didn't take his phone. He walked out into the freezing night, leaving the door wide open, letting the snow blow into the marble foyer. I watched him go on the camera. "Dante," I said to the man beside me, "follow him. Do not let him do anything stupid." Dante started the car. Marcus walked down the long driveway. He was shivering violently, but he didn't seem to notice. He walked past the spot where his Porsche used to be. He walked out the iron gates. He walked 2 miles in the snow to a dive bar on the edge of town. It was the kind of place where nobody asked your name and nobody cared about your credit score. Dante sat in the car outside giving me updates. He is drinking whiskey Winston. A lot of it. He is talking to himself. "Let him drink," I said. "Sometimes you have to burn the infection out." But Marcus wasn't just drinking. He was trying to erase the last 10 years of his life. He was trying to drown the voice of his wife telling him he was a zero. 2 hours later, Dante called me. "We have a problem, Winston." He left the bar. He found a bicycle. "A bicycle?" I asked. "Yeah, some kid left a bike unlocked outside. Marcus took it. He is trying to ride it down the main road. He is swerving all over the place." "Stop him," I said. "I can't," Dante said. "He is going onto the highway." Oh no. I heard the screech of tires through the phone. I heard the crunch of metal. "Marcus," I shouted. "He is alive," Dante said, his voice calm but urgent. He swerved into a parked patrol car. He hit the bumper. He went over the handlebars. "Is he moving?" Yeah, he is trying to fight the airbag of the police car. The officer is getting out. Winston, he is being arrested. DUI on a bicycle and destruction of police property. I closed my eyes and let out a long breath. This was rock bottom. My son, the heir to a logistics dynasty, was being handcuffed in the snow for crashing a stolen bicycle into a cop car. Do not interfere, I told Dante. Let them book him. Meet me at the station with the bail money. The police station was a grim place. Fluorescent lights that hummed too loud. The smell of floor wax and stale coffee. I walked in wearing my long wool coat and my hat. The desk sergeant knew me. Mr. Bishop, he said, nodding respectfully. I am sorry about this. He is in the tank. He is pretty banged up, scraped his face on the pavement. Is he sober? I asked. He is getting there. He is mostly just crying, sir. Process the bail, I said. I want him released to my custody. 30 minutes later, the buzzer sounded, and the heavy metal door clicked open. Marcus walked out. He looked terrible. His expensive sweater was torn and stained with mud. He had a bandage on his forehead. His eyes were red and swollen. He saw me standing there. He didn't run to me. He didn't ask for a hug. He just looked at the floor. I got the car, I said. He followed me out. He probably expected to see the back of a luxury sedan. He probably expected me to take him to the Ritz-Carlton to clean him up and order him room service. Instead, I led him to my old Ford sedan, the one with the cloth seats and the heater that takes 10 minutes to kick in. He got in the passenger side. He shivered. Where are we going? He asked. His voice was raspy. Home, I said. He closed his eyes. He thought I meant the mansion. He probably thought I had fixed everything, that I had turned the power back on and kicked Courtney out. I drove in silence. I drove past the exit for the wealthy suburbs. Marcus opened his eyes when he realized we weren't turning. Dad, he said, you missed the exit. I kept driving. I drove past the downtown skyline. I drove south. The scenery changed. The manicured lawns were replaced by chain-link fences. The new luxury condos were replaced by brick tenements. Marcus sat up straighter. He looked nervous. Dad, where are we going? This is the old neighborhood. I know, I said. I pulled up in front of a 3-story brick building. It was old, but sturdy. The front stoop was swept clean. This was the building where I lived when I started the company. This was the building where Marcus was born. Get out, I said. Marcus looked at the building with horror. He hadn't been here since he was 5 years old. To him, this wasn't heritage. It was poverty. Dad, I can't stay here. It is dangerous. The only thing dangerous in your life, Marcus, is the woman you married, I said. Get out of the car. He got out. He followed me up the 3 flights of stairs. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage and floor cleaner. It was the smell of honest living. I unlocked the door to apartment 3B. It was small. A living room with a worn sofa, a small kitchen with a formica table, a bedroom with a single window overlooking the alley. It was cold inside. I walked over and turned on the radiator. It clanked and hissed, coming to life. Sit down, I said, pointing to the sofa. Marcus sat. He looked around the room like he had landed on Mars. Why are we here? He asked. Because you have nowhere else to go, I said. You have no home. You have no money. You have no wife. Marcus flinched. She told you, didn't she? He whispered. She told you I was a 0. I didn't answer. I walked into the kitchenette and filled a kettle with water. I put it on the stove. She said she married the name. He continued, tears starting to fall again. She said I was just a delivery boy. Was she wrong? I asked. The question hung in the air. Marcus looked up at me, shocked. Dad, how can you say that? I turned to face him. Look at you, Marcus. You are 38 years old. You are wearing a $500 sweater that I paid for. You wrecked a bicycle because you were too drunk to walk. You are sitting in my apartment because you do not have a key to your own front door. I tried, he sobbed. I tried to be the man you wanted. No, you didn't, I said. You tried to be the man she wanted. You spent 10 years playing dress up. You let that woman insult your heritage. You let her steal from your daughter. You let her treat me like a dog. And you did it because you thought if you bought her enough Hermes bags, she would love you. I loved her, Dad. You loved a reflection, I said. You loved how she looked on your arm. But you didn't love yourself enough to demand respect. A man who doesn't respect himself cannot lead a family. I poured 2 cups of tea. I handed one to him. This apartment, I said, sitting down in the armchair opposite him. This is where I started. When your mother and I moved in here, we had nothing. I had 1 truck and a lot of debt. But we had dignity. We paid our own bills. We cooked our own food. And when we sat down at that small table over there, we were grateful. I took a sip of tea. You need to remember who you are, Marcus. You are a bishop. You come from a line of men who built things with their hands. You are not a socialite. You are not a checkbook. Marcus held the warm cup with both hands. He was shaking less now. What do I do, Dad? He asked. My life is over. No, I said. Your vacation is over. Your life is just starting. I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled out a blanket and a pillow. I tossed them onto the sofa. You are going to sleep here tonight. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. you are going to get up and do what he asked. And go to work, I said. Work where? At the warehouse, I said. I spoke to the foreman. They are short a guy on the loading dock. It pays $15 an hour. It is hard work. It is cold work, but it is honest work. You want me to load trucks? Marcus asked, disbelief in his eyes. I have a marketing degree. Your marketing degree just bought you a foreclosure and a divorce, I said. Tomorrow you load trucks. You are going to earn your own money. You are to buy your own lunch. And you are going to learn what it feels like to be tired because you worked, not because you partied. Marcus looked at the blanket. He looked at the peeling paint on the wall. He looked at me. For the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't fear or entitlement. It was resignation. Okay, he whispered. Okay, Dad. I walked to the door. I will be back in the morning, I said. Don't leave. The door locks from the inside. And Marcus. He looked up. Courtney is going to jail, I said. The sheriff picked her up an hour ago. She was in a taxi headed for the airport. She had the pearls in her purse. Marcus closed his eyes. He nodded slowly. Good, he said. I turned off the main light, leaving him in the glow of the street lamp coming through the window. Sleep well, son, I said. You have a big day tomorrow. I walked out of the apartment and locked the door behind me. I walked down the stairs, listening to the sound of my own footsteps. I had broken him down. I had stripped him of everything false. Now came the hard part, building him back up into the man he was supposed to be. But as I walked out into the cold Chicago night, I felt a glimmer of hope. Because for the first time in a decade, my son wasn't sleeping in a bed of lies. He was sleeping on a lumpy sofa in the truth. And the truth is the only foundation that holds weight. The sound of the radiator waking up was not a gentle hum. It was a violent metallic clanking that sounded like a prisoner banging a tin cup against the bars of a cell. It was 6 a.m. Outside the single-pane window, the Chicago wind was howling down the alleyway, rattling the glass in its frame. Inside, the air smelled of stale dust and frying bacon grease. I stood in the kitchenette of the tiny apartment, my back to the living room, watching the coffee drip into the pot. I was wearing my work boots, the same Red Wing boots I bought 20 years ago. They were scuffed and the leather was cracked, but they were still the most comfortable things I owned. They were honest. I heard a groan from the sofa. Marcus was waking up. He tried to roll over, but the springs of the old sofa screamed in protest. He hit the floor with a thud. He lay there for a moment, tangled in the scratchy wool blanket I had thrown over him last night. He looked around the room with wild, disoriented eyes. For a second, he probably thought he was in a nightmare. Then he saw the peeling paint on the ceiling. He saw the water stain in the corner that looked like a map of Florida. He saw me, and he realized the nightmare was his life. Good morning, sunshine, I said, pouring black coffee into a chipped mug. Get up. You are burning daylight. Marcus sat up, rubbing his face. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot from the whiskey and the crying. His expensive haircut was matted on one side. He was wearing the same cashmere sweater he had worn to the police station, but now it smelled like a holding cell. Dad, he croaked. His voice was dry. Is there any water? Tap is over there, I said, pointing to the sink. The glass is in the cupboard. Don't mind the rust stain near the rim. It gives it flavor. Marcus pulled himself up. He walked to the sink like an old man. He drank from the tap, cupping his hands because he couldn't find the glass fast enough. He splashed cold water on his face. He looked at his reflection in the small, cracked mirror above the sink. He stared at himself for a long time. I do not belong here, Dad, he whispered. I cannot do this. I need to go home. I need to call Courtney. Maybe she has calmed down. Maybe we can talk. I slammed the coffee mug down on the Formica table. The sound made him jump. Sit down, Marcus. He sat. He looked like a child waiting for a beating. You are not calling her, I said, sitting opposite him. And you are not going home. Because that house isn't your home. It never was. It was a stage set, Marcus. And the play is over. Marcus looked at his hands, soft hands, manicured hands, hands that had never held anything heavier than a steering wheel or a wine glass. "Why do you hate her so much?" he asked. He looked up at me and there was real pain in his eyes. "Is it because she is white? Is that it? Courtney said you were always prejudiced. She said you never accepted her because she didn't look like us." I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a bark. "You think this is about race?" I asked. "You think I care about the melanin in her skin?" I leaned across the table. "Your mother and I moved into this apartment in 1974. We had $50 to our name. I was driving a truck for a company that made me eat my lunch in the cab because they didn't want colored drivers in the break room. Your mother scrubbed floors in office buildings downtown. She washed dishes until her hands were raw and cracked and bleeding. I held up my own hands. They were scarred, they were rough. We did that for you, Marcus. We ate beans and rice for 5 years so we could save enough to buy our first truck. We slept on a mattress on the floor in this very room so we could save enough to buy a house in a safe neighborhood. We took the insults. We took the spit. We took the doors slamming in our faces." I pointed a finger at him. "I do not hate Courtney because she is white, Marcus. I hate her because she made you white." Marcus flinched. "What?" "She erased you," I said. "She took my son, the boy who used to run these streets, the boy who used to sit on his grandmother's lap and listen to stories about the struggle, and she turned him into a prop. She bleached your soul, Marcus. She made you ashamed of where you came from. She made you ashamed of the sweat that paid for her diamonds." "That is not true," Marcus protested weak. "She loves me, does she?" I asked. "Or does she tolerate you? Think back, Marcus. Think back to the barbecue 3 years ago. The 4th of July. Marcus looked away. I saw his jaw tighten. "You remember," I said. "Your cousin Darnell came up from Mississippi. He brought his kids. He brought his smoker. He wanted to cook ribs in your backyard. He wanted to play music. He wanted to celebrate. And what did Courtney do?" Marcus didn't answer. He stared at the steam rising from the coffee. "She told you to send them away," I said. My voice was hard now, merciless. "She told you they were too loud. She said the smoke would ruin the patio furniture. She said the neighbors would complain about the ghetto music." Marcus closed his eyes. "And what did you do, Marcus? Did you stand up for your blood? Did you tell her that Darnell was the one who taught you how to ride a bike? Did you tell her that those loud people were the reason you had a backyard to begin with? No. You went out there and you told Darnell there was a mix-up with the dates. You told your own cousin to leave. You sent them away with a plate of cold food like they were beggars." I stood up and walked to the window. "That was the day I lost you, Marcus. Not today. That day. When you looked at your own family through her eyes and saw trash instead of treasure. That is why I hate her. She took your pride, she took your history, and she replaced it with a credit card limit and a country club membership where the waiters look like you, but the members don't." The room was silent except for the wind rattling the glass. Marcus was crying again, but these weren't the panicked tears of a man losing his money. These were the quiet, heavy tears of a man realizing he had lost himself. "I remember," he whispered. He looked up at me. "I remember she told me not to invite Aunt Sarah to the wedding because she was too fat. She said it would ruin the photos." He wiped his nose with his sleeve. "I remember she threw away the quilt Grandma made me. She said it smelled like old people. She said it didn't match the duvet." He looked down at his hands. "I let her do it, Dad. I let her throw it away." I walked back to the table and put a hand on his shoulder. It was heavy. "You let her do it because you thought she was the prize," I said. "You thought if you erased enough of yourself you would finally fit into her world. But you never fit Marcus. To her you were just an accessory. A black husband to prove she was progressive and a rich husband to prove she was successful. You were a trophy, and trophies don't speak. Trophies don't have families. Trophies just sit on the shelf and shine." Marcus grabbed my hand. He squeezed it hard. "I am sorry, Dad. I am so sorry. I know," I said. "And I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't pay the rent, and forgiveness doesn't build character." I pulled my hand away and walked to the closet. I pulled out a pair of coveralls. They were blue, navy blue. They had the Bishop Logistics logo on the pocket. The old logo, the one I drew myself 40 years ago. "Put these on," I said, tossing them to him. Marcus caught them. He looked at the heavy fabric. "What are these?" "Your new suit," I said. I threw a pair of work boots on the floor next to him. They were new. I had bought them yesterday, knowing this moment was coming. "Size 10, I said. "Steel toe. Put them on." Marcus stood up. He took off the cashmere sweater. He folded it neatly and placed it on the chair. Then he picked it up again and threw it in the trash can. He stepped into the coveralls. He zipped them up. They were a little loose, but they fit. He sat down and laced up the boots. He pulled the laces tight. He stood up. He looked taller. He looked solid. "How do I look?" he asked. "You look like a man who is ready to work," I said. I grabbed my keys. The warehouse opens in 20 minutes. The foreman's name is Miller. He doesn't care who your father is. He cares if you can lift 50 pounds and show up on time. You're going to start at the bottom, Marcus. You're going to sweep the dock. You are going to load the pallets. You're going to freeze your ass off. Marcus nodded. "And Marcus," I said, pausing at the door. "Yeah, Dad. When you come home tonight, your muscles are going to ache. Your back is going to scream. You are going to smell like diesel and sweat. But when you look in the mirror, you won't see a 0. You will see a man who earned his dinner. And that is a feeling Courtney can never give you." He looked at me. For the first time in 10 years, I saw my son. Not the puppet. The son. "Let us go," he said. We walked out of the apartment. We walked down the 3 flights of stairs. The stairs creaked under our boots. It was the sound of a new beginning. Outside, the snow had stopped, but the wind was still biting. The world was gray and cold. But as we walked to the car, Marcus didn't shiver. He buttoned his collar and walked into the wind. He was broke. He was homeless. He was divorced. But as I watched him get into that beat-up Ford sedan, I knew one thing. He was finally free. The lesson had begun, and class was in session. The silence in the mansion after Marcus walked out was not empty. It was heavy. It was the suffocating pressure of a submarine diving too deep. Courtney stood in the foyer, surrounded by her half-packed orange boxes. The front door was still open, letting the snow drift onto the marble. She watched the tail lights of my car disappear, taking her husband and her last safety net with them. For a normal person, this would be the moment of collapse. This would be the moment you fall to your knees and pray for forgiveness. But Courtney Vance was not a normal person. She was a narcissist who had just been cornered, and a cornered narcissist does not pray. She plots. I watched her on the backup security feed. She slammed the front door shut and locked it. She turned around and looked at the grand staircase. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving like a runner who had just finished a marathon. She walked over to the side table where Marcus had dropped the eviction notice. She picked it up. She read it in the beam of her flashlight. Notice of default. Immediate surrender of premises. She let out a scream of pure frustration. It was a guttural, animalistic sound. Then she ripped the paper in half, then in quarters. Then she threw the confetti of her legal reality into the air. "No," she whispered. Her voice was distorted by the microphone, but I heard every word. "I am not leaving. I am Courtney Vance. I do not lose." She pulled out her phone. Her thumb flew across the screen. She wasn't calling a lawyer. She wasn't calling a mover. She was scrolling through her contacts looking for a lifeline. She stopped scrolling. A slow, terrifying smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a gambler who just decided to bet the deed to the farm on a single hand of poker. She dialed a number. "Hello, Charles," she said. Her voice changed instantly. The panic vanished. It was replaced by a smooth, honeyed tone of absolute confidence. "It is Courtney Bishop. Yes, I know it is late. I have incredible news. The liquidity issue with the fund. It is resolved, yes, completely. Winston, my father-in-law, has decided to step in." I sat in the hotel room listening to her lie. I took a sip of my coffee. She was doubling down. She wasn't just trying to survive, she was trying to pull off one last massive con. "Yes," Courtney continued, pacing the dark hallway. "He is investing $5 million into the portfolio tomorrow. But Charles, here is the thing. Winston is old school. He wants to meet the key partners before he signs the check. He wants to look you in the eye." She paused, listening to the voice on the other end. "Tomorrow night," she said. "Thanksgiving Eve. Yes, here at the house. An exclusive dinner. Just the inner circle. You bring the paperwork for the bridge loan and Winston will sign it personally. It is a formality, Charles, but you know how these tycoons are." She hung up. Then she dialed another number, and another, and another. She was inviting her creditors. The people she had scammed with her fake crypto fund. She was telling them all the same lie. The rich patriarch was bailing her out. Come to dinner. Bring your checkbooks. The nightmare is over. It was a Ponzi scheme classic. Rob Peter to pay Paul. She was going to use new money from these investors to pay off the sharks and maybe even try to pay me off. She thought she could buy her way out of a felony with more stolen money. But there was a hole in her plan. A massive, gaping hole. She needed Winston Bishop. She needed me to stand there, shake hands, and look like the benevolent billionaire. And she knew I would never do it. I watched her pace the floor. She was biting her nail. She knew she had promised a ghost. Then she stopped. She looked at the family portrait hanging above the fireplace. A portrait of me, Marcus, and Beatrice. She stared at my face in the painting. Then she picked up her phone again. She didn't dial a contact this time. She searched for a website. I zoomed in on the screen. Talent Cast Chicago. It was a casting agency. She typed in a search query. African American male. 65 to 75 years old. Distinguished. Authoritative. Deep voice. I put my coffee cup down. I couldn't believe it. The audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't going to beg me to come back. She was going to replace me. She found a profile. She dialed the number. Hi, she said. Is this the agency? I have an emergency booking. A corporate role play event. Tomorrow night. I need a character actor. Very specific look. Yes. The rate is triple, cash. But he needs to sign an NDA. She hung up. She looked around the dark house. She had 24 hours to turn a frozen foreclosure into a warm, inviting stage for $1 million swindle. And she was going to do it. The next morning, the sun rose over a city covered in white. It was the day before Thanksgiving, the busiest travel day of the year. But at the Bishop Mansion, it was the busiest day of deception. I had Dante parked down the street in an unmarked van. He was watching the physical comings and goings while I monitored the digital footprint. Winston Dante radioed in at 10 a.m. You are not going to believe this. A truck just pulled up. It is a generator rental company. Let them in, I said. She needs lights for her show. Courtney paid the driver in cash. A thick roll of bills she must have gotten from selling the last of her jewelry. Within an hour, the house was humming. The lights were back on. The heat was cranking. Then came the caterers. Not a high-end service. They wouldn't take her credit. It was a local deli crew paid up front. She was plating deli turkey on fine china, hoping no one would notice the difference. But the main event arrived at 2 p.m. A battered Honda Civic pulled into the driveway. A man stepped out. He was tall, he was black. He had gray hair and a short beard. He was wearing a tweed jacket with patches on the elbows. He looked like a professor, or a very low-budget version of me. Courtney ran out to meet him. She didn't shake his hand. She grabbed his arm and dragged him inside. I switched to the interior camera in the living room. Okay, listen to me, Courtney was saying. She was manic. Her eyes were wide and unblinking. Your name is Winston. You are a logistics mogul. You are a man of few words. The actor looked confused. He was holding a script she had shoved into his hand. Lady, I thought this was a murder mystery party, he said. His voice was lighter than mine. Softer. It is like a mystery, Courtney snapped. But the mystery is high finance. Look at me. Stand up straight. Shoulders back. You are worth $50 million. Act like it. The man straightened his spine. Better. Now Courtney said, pacing around him. You do not speak unless spoken to. You just nod. You smile benevolently. If they ask about business, you say, my team handles the minutiae. Can you say that? My team handles the minutiae, the actor tried. Minutiae, Courtney corrected. Details. Just say details. And for God's sake, put on this suit. She handed him one of my old suits, one I had left in the guest closet years ago. The actor held it up. It is a little big, he said. It fits perfectly. Courtney lied. Now go change. The guests will be here in 4 hours. She was building a house of cards in the middle of a hurricane. She had invited 5 investors. The buy-in was $200,000 each. That was $1 million. She thought $1 million would fix everything. She thought she could take the cash, pay off the foreclosure tomorrow morning, and then tell the investors that the paperwork was delayed. She was buying time. But she was buying time with counterfeit currency. I watched the actor come back into the room wearing my suit. He looked ridiculous. The sleeves were too long. He looked like a child playing dress-up in his father's clothes. But to a desperate investor who had never met the real Winston Bishop, he might just pass. Courtney adjusted his tie. She stepped back and looked at him. "Perfect," she whispered. "You look exactly like him, only better, because you will do what I say." She was so proud of herself. She had cast a puppet to play the puppeteer. My phone rang. It was Dante. "Winston," he said. "I am looking at the guest list she emailed to the caterer. I ran the names. Who are they?" "Charles Vance. No relation. He is a venture capitalist. Linda and Robert Sterling, real estate developers. And a guy named Victor Crum. He runs an offshore betting syndicate." "Sharks," I said. "She invited sharks to dinner, and she is feeding them a fake fish." Dante laughed. "Winston, if they find out that guy is an actor, they won't sue her. They will break her legs." "They won't have time," I said, "because we are going to crash the party." I stood up and walked to the closet. I pulled out my own suit. The midnight blue bespoke suit I wore to board meetings. I put on my watch, the Patek Philippe that cost more than the actor's car. "Dante," I said into the phone, "call the sheriff back. Tell him the charges have been upgraded." "Upgraded to what?" "Criminal impersonation," I said. "Attempted grand larceny and securities fraud." "And Dante?" "Yeah, boss. Tell him to bring the riot squad, because when I walk into that room, there is going to be a riot." I looked at the screen one last time. Courtney was pouring cheap champagne into crystal glasses. She was rehearsing her toast. To family, she practiced raising a glass to the empty room. To legacy. I smiled. "To the truth, Courtney," I whispered. "Excellent," I said aloud. The trap was set. The bait was taken. It was time for the real Winston Bishop to make an entrance. I walked out of the hotel room. The elevator ride down felt like a countdown. 10 floors. 10 years of disrespect. 10 years of lies. 0 floors left. I got into the car. "To the mansion, Dante," I said, "and do not spare the horses. We have a performance to catch." The curtain was about to go up on the final act of Courtney Vance. And I was going to be the critic who shut the show down. The snow was falling softly on the hood of the unmarked police cruiser. I sat in the passenger seat next to Sheriff Miller, watching the golden glow of my own house through the windshield. It looked warm. It looked inviting. From the outside, it looked like the perfect American Thanksgiving. The driveway was packed with luxury cars, a Bentley, 2 Mercedes, a vintage Jaguar. The sharks had arrived and they smelled blood in the water. Inside that house, my daughter-in-law was currently performing the greatest role of her life. She was playing the part of the dutiful heiress. She was selling a lie wrapped in silk and served on my fine china. Sheriff Miller looked at his watch. "It is 8 o'clock, Mr. Bishop. You said the toast is at 8:15. I nodded slowly. "Let them get a few drinks in. I want them relaxed. I want them confident. And most of all, I want Courtney to think she has won." I looked down at the tablet in my lap. The hidden camera feed was crystal clear. The living room was transformed. Courtney had staged it perfectly. She had moved the furniture to create an intimate salon atmosphere. A fire was roaring in the hearth. Waiters hired from a temp agency were circulating with trays of hors d'oeuvres. And there he was, the imposter. The actor Courtney had hired was standing by the fireplace. He was wearing my midnight blue suit. It was a little tight across the shoulders, but in the dim light he looked the part. He held a glass of scotch in one hand, and he was nodding sagely at Charles Vance, the venture capitalist. I turned up the volume on the feed. The actor's voice came through the speakers. It was deeper than mine, a little too theatrical. "The market is volatile," Charles, the actor, said. "But the Bishop strategy has always been about long-term stability. We do not panic. We pivot." I watched Courtney. She was hovering nearby, her eyes darting around the room like a hawk. She was wearing a red dress, bright blood red. She looked victorious. She stepped in and touched the actor's arm. "Exactly," she said. "Winston has always taught us that true wealth is about patience." "Is that not right, Winston?" The actor smiled a practiced, benevolent smile. "Absolutely, Courtney. You have always been a quick learner." I felt a cold burn in my stomach. She was putting words in my mouth using a puppet to validate her own genius. It was nauseating. But it was also brilliant. If I did not know better, I would have believed it myself. The guests were eating it up. I saw Linda Sterling, the real estate developer, leaning in. "So Winston," she asked, "is it true you are doubling down on the crypto portfolio? Courtney was telling us about the new fund." The actor hesitated. He looked at Courtney for a cue. Courtney stepped in smoothly. Oh, he is being modest, Linda. He is not just doubling down. He is revolutionizing the family trust. He believes the traditional banking system is dead. He wants us to be on the cutting edge. That is why he is authorizing the transfer of $5 million into the new holding company tomorrow. $5 million. She had raised the stakes. She wasn't just trying to cover her debts. She was trying to steal a fortune. I looked at Sheriff Miller. It is time, I said. The sheriff spoke into his radio. All units move in. Silent approach. Secure the perimeter. No sirens. I opened the car door. The cold air hit my face. It felt good. It felt like justice. We walked up the long driveway. Me in my heavy wool coat and hat, flanked by the sheriff and 4 uniformed deputies. We did not look like guests. We looked like a reckoning. I could hear the music coming from the house. Jazz. Coltrane. My favorite record. She was using my own soundtrack to rob me. We reached the front door. The sheriff reached for the knocker. I stopped his hand. No, Sheriff, I said. I do not knock on my own door. I pulled out my keys. The heavy brass keys that Courtney had demanded I hand over 1,000 times. The keys she thought she had taken from me. She forgot I always kept a spare set. I slid the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click. Inside the house, Courtney was tapping a spoon against a crystal glass. The room went silent. All eyes turned to her. She stood in the center of the room, beaming. "Thank you all for coming," she said. Her voice was trembling with excitement. "Tonight is a special night. It is not just Thanksgiving Eve. It is a new beginning for the Bishop family." She raised her glass. "For years, people have said that old money is slow money. But tonight, my father-in-law, Winston Bishop, is proving that you can teach an old dog new tricks. He has graciously agreed to partner with all of you to bring our legacy into the future." The guests murmured in approval. "So please join me in a toast," Courtney said, turning to the actor. "To Winston, to family, and to the $5 million that will change all our lives tomorrow." The actor raised his glass. "To the future," he boomed. I threw the double doors open. They banged against the walls with a sound like a gunshot. The cold wind rushed into the warm room, extinguishing the candles near the door. "To the future, indeed," I said. My voice was not loud, but it cut through the room like a razor blade. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. It was the silence of a heart stopping. Courtney dropped her glass. It shattered on the marble floor, spraying champagne over her red dress. She stared at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked from me to the actor and back to me. The actor froze. He was holding his glass in midair. He looked at me and I saw the realization dawn in his eyes. He wasn't looking at a guest. He was looking at the original. "Who the hell is this?" Charles Vance asked, looking annoyed. "Courtney." "Who is this man interrupting our toast?" Courtney found her voice. It was a screech. "Security!" She yelled. "Call security!" "This man is an imposter. He is a stalker. Get him out of here." I walked into the room. The snow was melting on my shoulders. I did not stop walking until I was standing right in front of the fireplace, right next to the actor. I looked at him. He was taller than me, but he shrank under my gaze. "Nice suit," I said to him, "but the sleeves are too long. And you are holding the scotch wrong. I never drink with ice." The actor looked at Courtney, then at the sheriff standing behind me. He put the glass down on the mantelpiece. "Look, man," he stammered. "I just got booked for a gig. I did not know." "Sit down," I said. He sat. Immediately. I turned to the room. The investors were looking confused. They were looking at the police officers who were now filing into the room, lining the walls. "Courtney," I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "You forgot to introduce your other guest." Courtney was backing away. Her face was gray. "He is senile." She screamed, pointing at me. "Do not listen to him. He has dementia. He escaped from his care facility. Sheriff, why are you standing there? Arrest him." Sheriff Miller stepped forward. He walked past the investors who parted like the Red Sea. He stopped in front of Courtney. "Mrs. Vance," he said, "we are not here to arrest him. We are here to execute a warrant." "A warrant," Courtney whispered. Her back hit the wall. "For who?" "For the woman who just attempted to defraud 5 accredited investors of $1 million, the sheriff said. "And for the woman who stole $500,000 from a child's trust fund." The room erupted. Charles Vance dropped his drink. Linda Sterling grabbed her purse. The investors realized in a split second that they weren't at a business dinner. They were at a crime scene. "It is a lie," Courtney yelled. She looked wild. She looked around for an ally. She looked at the actor. "Help me. Tell them, you are Winston Bishop." The actor shook his head. "Lady, I am an extra from a toothpaste commercial. I am not going to jail for you." Courtney looked at Charles. "Charles, tell them the deal is real." Charles Vance looked at me. He looked at the real Winston Bishop standing tall in his own house. "I think we have been played," Charles said coldly. He put his checkbook back in his pocket. I took a step toward Courtney. "The game is over, Courtney," I said. "The lights are on. The curtain is up, and the audience knows the truth." "No," Courtney hissed. She looked at the door. She was calculating the distance. She was thinking about running. "Don't even think about it," I said. "There are 2 deputies at the back door, and Dante is watching the garage." Courtney slumped. The energy left her body. She slid down the wall until she was crouching on the floor in her ruined red dress. "Why," she whispered, "why couldn't you just die? Why couldn't you just let us have it? You are old. You do not need it." I looked down at her. "Because it wasn't yours to take," I said. I turned to the sheriff. "Get her out of my sight, Sheriff. And take the actor, too. He is an accessory." "Hey, wait!" the actor yelled as a deputy grabbed his arm. "I have an invoice. She hasn't paid me yet. She hasn't paid anyone," I said. The sheriff pulled Courtney to her feet. She didn't fight. She was in shock. She walked like a zombie, the champagne dripping from her dress. As they led her past me, she stopped. She looked into my eyes. "Marcus will never forgive you," she said. I looked at the door where the police lights were flashing against the snow. "Marcus is waiting in the car, Courtney," I said. Her eyes went wide. "He drove me here," I said. That was the final blow. The hope vanished from her eyes. She realized she was truly alone. "Take her away," I said. I watched them lead her out into the cold night. The investors were scrambling to leave, grabbing their coats, muttering apologies, trying to distance themselves from the disaster. I stood alone in the center of the living room. The fire was still crackling. The jazz was still playing. I picked up the glass of scotch the actor had left on the mantel. I poured it into the fire. The flames roared up for a second. I turned to the empty room. "Happy Thanksgiving," I whispered. The charade was over. Now the real cleanup could begin. The silence that followed the slamming of the front doors was absolute. It was the kind of silence that usually happens right before a bomb goes off. The jazz music from the stereo cut out abruptly as one of the uniformed officers stepped over and pulled the plug. The only sound left in that cavernous living room was the crackling of the fire and the wind whistling through the open door behind me. I stood there letting the cold air roll off my wool coat. I looked at the room. It was a perfect tableau of deception. The investors holding their crystal glasses, the waiters frozen with their silver trays, the actor standing by the fireplace looking like a deer in headlights, and Courtney. Courtney was the focal point. She was standing in the center of the room in her blood-red dress, her hand half raised in a toast that would never be finished. She stared at me with a mixture of horror and confusion. For a split second, she looked like she might faint. But then I saw the gears turning in her head. She was a survivor. She was a cockroach. And cockroaches do not faint. They scurry. I walked into the room. My footsteps on the marble floor were heavy and deliberate. Click, click, click. I walked past Charles Vance, who was holding a checkbook. I walked past Linda Sterling, who was clutching her pearls. I walked straight up to the man pretending to be me. The actor was sweating. Up close, I could see the cheap makeup they had used to age him. I could smell the fear on him. He was holding my scotch in a glass that I knew for a fact cost more than his entire outfit. I reached out and patted him on the shoulder. It was a hard pat, a patronizing pat. "That was a hell of a monologue," I said to him. My voice was low, but it carried to every corner of the room. "You almost had me convinced. You really captured my cadence. But there is one small problem with your performance, my friend." The actor swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. "What is that?" he whispered. I leaned in close so only he and Courtney could hear. "The check is going to bounce." What the actor asked, his eyes darting to Courtney. She did not tell you, did she? I said, straightening up and addressing the room. She hired you to play a billionaire. She promised you triple your rate in cash. But the woman standing there in that red dress does not have $3 to her name, let alone 3,000, Courtney snapped. The shock wore off and the rage took over. She realized her play was collapsing and she decided to go down swinging. Security, she screamed. Her voice cracked, reaching a pitch that hurt the ears. Security, get in here. This man is trespassing. This man is a stalker. He is harassing my guests. She looked around wildly, but the hired waiters were backing away. They were temp workers, not bodyguards. They weren't paid enough to fight a man who walked in with the police. Courtney pointed a shaking finger at me. "You are senile," she yelled. "You are confused, Winston. Get out of my house. You are ruining a private business meeting." Charles, do not listen to him. He has dementia. He thinks he still owns the company. He is sick. I laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Sick, I asked. I looked at Charles Vance. Charles looked uncomfortable. He was a shark, but he knew when the water was tainted. "Charles," I said, "I believe you were about to write a check for $200,000. Is that right?" Charles nodded slowly. "That was the buy-in for the bridge fund." "Yes." "And who is the fund manager?" I asked. He pointed at the actor. "Winston Bishop." I shook my head. "That man is not Winston Bishop. That man is an actor named Gerald. I saw his profile on the casting website an hour ago, and the money you were about to give him. It wasn't going into a bridge fund, it was going to pay off a loan shark named Jimmy the Gent and a foreclosure notice on this house," liar Courtney shrieked. She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the table and held it like a weapon. "He is lying. The fund is real. The deal is real. He is just jealous. He is trying to sabotage me because I am successful." I turned to the sheriff who was standing quietly by the door. "Sheriff Miller," I said, "I think we have heard enough." "Heard. Would you mind clarifying the situation for Mrs. Vance?" Sheriff Miller stepped into the light. The sight of his uniform caused a ripple of panic among the guests. "Rich people do not like seeing the police at dinner parties. It implies that something is very wrong." Sheriff Miller walked to the center of the room. He did not look at the investors. He looked straight at Courtney. "Courtney Vance," he said, his voice booming. "I have a warrant for your arrest." Courtney dropped the vase. It hit the floor and shattered, sending shards of glass skittering across the marble. "Arrest," she whispered. "For what? I did not do anything. This is a civil dispute. This is a family matter." "It is not civil anymore, ma'am," the sheriff said, pulling a pair of metal handcuffs from his belt. "You are being charged with 3 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of criminal impersonation, and 1 count of grand larceny regarding the embezzlement of funds from the Bishop Educational Trust." The room erupted. Grand larceny. Linda Sterling gasped. She backed away from Courtney as if she were contagious. "You stole from a trust fund." "I did not." Courtney yelled, backing up until she hit the fireplace. "It was a loan. I was going to pay it back." "Winston, tell them. Tell them I had permission." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had banned me from my own table. "I never gave you permission to steal from my granddaughter Courtney," I said, "and I certainly never gave you permission to sell my wife's pearls." "Pearls?" Charles Vance asked. He looked disgusted. "She pawned them," I said. "She sold my dead wife's jewelry to pay for a gambling debt, and tonight she invited you all here to rob you so she could buy them back before anyone noticed." Charles Vance looked at his checkbook. He ripped the check out. He tore it into tiny pieces and threw them on the floor. "You make me sick," he said to Courtney. "I am leaving." "Linda," Sterling said, grabbing her fur coat, "I am not being part of this." "Wait!" Courtney pleaded, reaching out to grab Linda's arm. "Linda, please. It is a misunderstanding. We can still do the deal. I can explain. Don't touch me." Linda snapped, pulling her arm away. "You are a fraud, Courtney. We all suspected it. But this is pathetic." The guests started to run. They didn't walk. They ran. They scrambled for the door, pushing past the deputies, desperate to get to their cars before their names ended up in the police report. In 30 seconds, the room was empty. Except for me, the sheriff, the deputies, the actor, and Courtney. Courtney stood alone in the wreckage of her life. The floor was covered in broken glass and torn checks. The fire was dying down. She looked at me. Her eyes were full of hate. Pure, unadulterated hate. "Are you happy now?" she hissed. "You destroyed everything. You destroyed your son's reputation. You destroyed my life. Are you satisfied?" I walked up to her. I stood so close I could see the veins pulsing in her neck. "I didn't destroy anything, Courtney," I said. "I just turned on the lights. You destroyed yourself. You built a life on lies, and you are surprised it collapsed when the truth walked in the door." She spat at me. A glob of saliva hit the lapel of my coat. I did not flinch. I pulled out a handkerchief and wiped it off. "That is assault on an elderly person," the sheriff said, stepping forward. "Add it to the list." Courtney tried to run. It was a pathetic attempt. She lunged toward the kitchen door, probably thinking she could make it to the garage, but she was wearing 6-inch heels and a long gown. She tripped over the hem of her dress and fell hard onto the marble floor. She scrambled on her hands and knees, trying to crawl away. "Get her," the sheriff said. 2 deputies moved in. They grabbed her arms. She screamed. It was a high-pitched wail that sounded like a siren. "Get off me," she yelled, kicking her legs. "Do you know who I am? I am a bishop. I am Mrs. Marcus Bishop. You cannot touch me." "You are not a bishop," I said, standing over her. "You never were. A bishop has honor. A bishop protects the family. You are just a thief in a stolen dress." "That dress she is wearing," I said, pointing to the red gown. "Check the tag. I bet she hasn't paid for that either." Courtney screamed again as the deputies hauled her to her feet. She struggled, thrashing against their grip. Sheriff Miller snapped the handcuffs onto her wrists. Click. Click. The sound echoed in the empty house. It was the sound of a steel trap snapping shut. "Courtney Vance. You have the right to remain silent," the sheriff began to recite. "No," Courtney screamed, drowning him out. "I will not be silent." "Marcus. Where is Marcus? He won't let you do this." "Call my husband." I stepped into her line of sight. "Marcus isn't coming, Courtney." "He will come," she sobbed. "He loves me. He will bail me out." "He won't," I said, "because he knows about the pearls. And he knows about the emails." Courtney froze. Her face went slack. "The emails," she whispered. "The ones to your boyfriend Julian," I said. "The ones about the apartment downtown. The ones about the child you have been hiding." She went limp. The fight went out of her instantly. She hung in the deputy's arms like a rag doll. She knew there was no coming back from that. "Take her away," I said, turning my back on her. "Please, Winston," she whimpered. Her voice was barely audible now. "Please, I am scared. I do not want to go to jail." "You should have thought about that before you stole from a child," I said without looking back. The deputies dragged her out. I heard her heels dragging on the floor. I heard the front door open. I heard the cold wind blow in one last time, and then the door slammed shut. She was gone. The room was quiet. I looked at the actor. He was still sitting in the chair, clutching the empty glass. He looked terrified. "Am I under arrest too?" he asked, his voice squeaking. I looked at him. He was pathetic. Just a man trying to make a buck who got caught in a hurricane. "Did you know she was stealing?" I asked. "No, sir," he said quickly. "I swear. She just told me it was a corporate role play. She said she needed a face for the brand. I didn't know about the fraud." I sighed. "Get out of here," I said. The actor jumped up. "And take off my suit," I added. He looked down at the midnight blue suit. "Right now?" he asked. "Right now." He stripped down to his boxers right there in the living room. He piled the suit on the chair. He grabbed his own clothes from a bag and ran out the front door half naked into the snow. I was alone. I looked around the house, my house, the house I had paid for, the house that was supposed to be a home for my son and his family. It was a wreck, but it was clean. The rot was gone. I walked over to the fireplace. I picked up the poker and stirred the dying embers. I looked at the portrait above the mantel. Me, Marcus, Beatrice. We looked happy in the painting. "We will be happy again, Beatrice," I whispered to the canvas. "It is going to take time. It is going to take work. But we will be happy again." I took out my phone. I dialed Dante. "Is it done?" I asked. "She is in the back of the cruiser," Winston Dante said. "She is crying. She is asking for a lawyer." Good, I said. And Marcus? He is at the apartment, Dante said. He is sleeping. He has a big day tomorrow. Yes, he does, I said. I hung up. I walked to the window and looked out at the driveway. The police cars were pulling away, their red and blue lights flashing against the white snow. It was finally over. The leech had been removed. Now came the healing. I turned off the lights in the living room, leaving only the glow of the fire. I sat down in the leather armchair. For the first time in 3 days, I closed my eyes and I didn't see numbers or lawyers or angry texts. I saw the future, and for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. It looked like hard work. It looked like honest sweat. But it was mine, and nobody was ever going to take it from me again. The red and blue lights of the police cruisers were pulsing through the open front door, cutting through the darkness of the snowy night and painting the marble foyer in violent, alternating shades. The party was over. The guests had fled like rats from a sinking ship, leaving behind half-drunk glasses of champagne and plates of expensive hors d'oeuvres that were now cold. I stood near the fireplace, watching the deputies march Courtney toward the exit. She was fighting them every step of the way. Her heels scraped against the floor, creating a screeching sound that echoed off the high ceilings. She was a mess of smeared mascara and ruined silk, a fallen queen being dragged from her throne. But she wasn't looking at me anymore. Her eyes were fixed on something behind me, something standing in the shadows of the hallway. I turned around. Marcus stepped into the light. He looked nothing like the man who had lived in this house for 10 years. He wasn't wearing his Italian loafers or his cashmere sweater. He was wearing the heavy work boots I had bought him that morning. He was wearing the blue coveralls with the Bishop Logistics logo on the pocket. He looked tired. He looked rough. But for the first time in his life, he looked solid. He looked like he weighed something. Courtney saw him and her face lit up with a desperate, manic hope. She stopped fighting the deputies. She threw her body weight forward, reaching out to him with her handcuffed hands. Marcus, she screamed. Her voice was raw, a mixture of panic and command. Marcus, thank God. Tell them. Tell these idiots who we are. Marcus didn't move. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, his feet planted wide on the floor. He watched her struggling against the officers. He watched the woman he had worshipped for a decade being hauled away like a common criminal. Baby, please, Courtney begged, realizing that he wasn't rushing to save her. Why are you just standing there? Do something. Your father has lost his mind. He called the police. He is trying to frame me. You have to stop him. Call our lawyer. Call the mayor. Do not let them take me. The deputies paused, looking at Marcus. They knew this was his house. They knew he was her husband. They were waiting to see if he would interfere. I held my breath. This was the test. I could strip Marcus of his money. I could strip him of his house. I could force him to work on a loading dock, but I couldn't strip the love out of his heart. That was something he had to do himself. He had to look at the woman he loved and decide that his dignity was worth more than her approval. Marcus took a step forward. The heavy boots clomped on the marble. Courtney smiled through her tears. See, she hissed at the deputies. My husband is here. You are all in so much trouble. Marcus, tell them to unhand me right now. Marcus stopped 3 feet away from her. He looked her up and down. He looked at the red dress she had stolen. He looked at the frantic eyes that had lied to him 1,000 times. You sold my mother, he said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't echo. It was quiet and flat and deadly. Courtney flinched. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a choke. Baby, not now, she said, desperate to change the subject. We can talk about the jewelry later. Right now you need to get these handcuffs off me. They are hurting my wrists. You sold my mother, Marcus repeated. He wasn't asking a question. He was stating a fact. You sold her to pay for a lie. You sold my daughter's future to pay for a lie. And you sold me. Marcus, please, Courtney sobbed. I did it for us. I did it to save the house. You did it for yourself, Marcus said. He looked at me, then he looked back at her. And you were right, Courtney. Courtney blinked, confused. What? You were right about me, Marcus said. Last night, when you were packing your bags, you said I was a zero. You said without my father's money, I was nothing. Courtney shook her head violently. I didn't mean that, baby. I was stressed. I was just saying things. You know I love you. You are my king. No, Marcus said. You were telling the truth. I was a zero. I was a zero because I let you turn me into one. I let you cut me off from my family. I let you shame me for my history. I let you spend my life like it was a lottery ticket. He took a deep breath. His chest expanded under the blue work shirt. But you know what the great thing about being a zero is, Courtney. Courtney stared at him, paralyzed by the change in his eyes. You can only go up from zero, Marcus said. He took a step closer until he was right in her face. Today is day one, he said. Today, I start counting again. I woke up this morning on a lumpy sofa in a cold apartment, and I felt more like a man than I ever felt in this museum of a house. I am going to work tomorrow. I am going to sweat. I am going to earn $15 an hour, and every single cent of it is going to be mine. Marcus Courtney whimpered. You cannot leave me. We are a team. There is no team, Marcus said. There is just you, and there is just me, and number one does not include you. He turned to the sheriff. Get her out of here, Sheriff, he said. She is trespassing in my father's house. No, Courtney screamed. It was a sound of pure terror. She realized she had lost. Her charm didn't work. Her tears didn't work. Her victim card was expired. Marcus, you cannot do this. I am your wife. I am the mother of your child. You are not a mother, Marcus shouted, spinning back around. His control cracked for just a second, revealing the rage underneath. A mother doesn't steal from her child. A mother doesn't have a secret family across town. Courtney froze. Her mouth fell open. Yeah, Marcus said, his voice trembling. I saw the emails too, Courtney. I know about Julian. I know about the boy. Courtney went limp. The fight drained out of her body like water from a broken glass. She looked at Marcus one last time, but she didn't see the weak, malleable boy she had married. She saw a stranger. She saw a bishop. The deputies dragged her toward the door. She didn't scream anymore. She just hung her head and let them pull her. As she passed the threshold, the wind caught her hair, blowing it across her face. The heavy front door slammed shut. Bang! The sound vibrated through the floorboards. Marcus stood there staring at the closed door. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He just breathed. In and out. In and out. I walked over to him. I didn't say anything. I just stood next to him, shoulder to shoulder. Two men in an empty house. He looked down at his boots. I am sorry, Dad, he whispered. I put a hand on his back. You have nothing to be sorry for, son. You did the hardest thing a man can do. You cut out the cancer. It hurts now. It is going to bleed. But you are going to live. Suddenly there was a sound from the top of the stairs. Footsteps, running footsteps, light and fast. I looked up. Zoe was standing on the landing. She was wearing her pajamas and clutching a backpack. She had been hiding in her room, listening to everything. She had heard the sirens. She had heard the screams. She had heard her mother being dragged away. But she had also heard her father. Daddy, she cried. Marcus looked up. His face crumbled. The tough mask fell away, and he was just a father who missed his little girl. Zoe. He choked out. She ran down the stairs. She skipped the last 2 steps and launched herself into the air. Marcus caught her. He fell to his knees under the impact, burying his face in her shoulder. Zoe wrapped her arms around his neck. She was crying. He was crying. I am sorry, baby. Marcus sobbed, rocking her back and forth. I am so sorry I let this happen. I am so sorry I wasn't there. It is okay, Daddy, Zoe said, holding him tight. You are here now. You are here. I watched them. My son and my granddaughter. They were huddled together on the floor of the foyer, a little island of love in a sea of marble. They didn't need the mansion. They didn't need the money. They needed this, the truth. Zoe looked up over Marcus's shoulder. She saw me standing there. Her eyes were red, but she smiled. It was a small, shaky smile. She reached out one hand toward me. Grandpa, she whispered. I walked over and knelt down beside them. I wrapped my arms around both of them, my big, rough arms encompassing the only 2 people in the world who mattered. We huddled there for a long time, the 3 of us. The house was cold. The furniture was being repossessed. The bank accounts were empty. But as I felt their hearts beating against mine, I knew we were richer than we had ever been. We are going to be okay, I whispered. Marcus looked at me. His eyes were wet, but clear. Yeah, Dad, he said. We are. He stood up, pulling Zoe with him. He wiped his face with the sleeve of his coveralls. He looked at the door one last time. Then he turned his back on it. Let us go home, Dad, he said. Not this place. Home. He meant the apartment. He meant the sofa. He meant the hard work waiting for him in the morning. I smiled. I led them out the side door to the old Ford sedan waiting in the snow. We left the lights on in the mansion. Let it burn electricity for one more night. Let it shine like a beacon for the ghosts of the past. We didn't need it anymore. We had escaped the collapse, and we were still standing. The sun rose on Thanksgiving morning, but it did not bring warmth to the Bishop estate. The house was a mausoleum of cold marble and bad memories. The heating was still off because I had not turned it back on. I wanted the cold to be a reminder. I wanted Marcus to feel the chill of reality one last time before we left this place forever. I sat at the long mahogany dining table, the same table where I was supposed to be banned, the same table where Courtney had planned to dazzle her investors with lies. Now it was just a slab of wood covered in legal files. Levi Cohen sat across from me. He looked fresh and sharp in his suit, a stark contrast to Marcus, who sat at the end of the table. My son was wearing his blue coveralls. He had slept in them. He looked like a man who had survived a shipwreck and washed up on a strange shore. Marcus stared at the papers. He was waiting for the final blow. He was waiting for us to tell him how much he owed. Levi opened a thick leather binder. He did not look at Marcus with pity. He looked at him with the clinical detachment of a surgeon about to explain why he had to amputate a limb. Marcus, Levi began. We need to discuss the disposition of this property. I know, Marcus said, his voice hoarse. I know the foreclosure is happening. I will sign whatever I need to sign. I just want to get Zoe and get out of here. Levi shook his head slowly. There is no foreclosure, Marcus. Marcus blinked. What? But you said the bank was calling the note. I said the loans were called. Levi corrected him. The loans for your lifestyle, but the house itself, the structure we are sitting in. There is no mortgage on this house, Marcus. There never was. Marcus looked confused. He looked at me, then back at Levi. I do not understand. Courtney said the mortgage was $12,000 a month. She showed me the bank transfers. Levi slid a document across the polished wood. Those transfers were going into a holding account, Levi said. An account managed by your father. You were paying rent, Marcus. Subsidized rent. But the deed to this house and the 5 acres of prime lakefront land it sits on has been held by Winston Bishop free and clear since the day you moved in. Marcus picked up the document. His hands were shaking. He read the title, Deed of Trust. Owner Winston Bishop. I bought it cash, I said. My voice echoed in the empty room. 10 years ago, I walked into the closing with a cashier's check. I wanted you to have a home that no bank could ever take away from you. Marcus looked up, his eyes wide. You own it. All of it. I own the ground you are standing on, I said. I own the driveway where you parked your cars. I own the roof that kept you dry. And I own the walls that Courtney hung her expensive art on. But why, Marcus whispered. Why did you let us believe we had a mortgage? Because I wanted you to be responsible, I said. I wanted you to feel the weight of a bill. But you didn't pay it, did you? You let the trust pay it. You let me pay myself with my own money. I leaned forward. This was the moment. This was the knife twisting in the wound. But that is not the important part, Marcus. Look at the second document, the one underneath the deed. Marcus lifted the first page. Underneath was a document printed on heavy cream paper. It had a gold seal at the bottom. Gift deed, he read aloud. Read the date, I said. Marcus looked at the top of the page. November 23rd. That was yesterday, he whispered. Yes, I said. That was yesterday. That was the day before Thanksgiving. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered lawn. I had a plan, Marcus. I was going to come to dinner today. I was going to eat the dry turkey and listen to Courtney brag about her friends. I was going to smile and nod. And then, when dessert was served, I was going to put this envelope on the table. I turned back to face him. I was going to sign this house over to you, Marcus. Free and clear. No strings attached. No more rent. No more oversight. It was going to be yours. A $2.5 million asset. A legacy for you and Zoe. Marcus dropped the paper. It fluttered to the table like a dead leaf. You were going to give me the house, he choked out. I was, I said. It was my Thanksgiving gift. I wanted you to be the man of your own castle. I wanted you to have security. I walked over to the table and picked up the unsigned deed. But there was a condition, a silent condition. What condition? Marcus asked, tears filling his eyes. I just wanted to be welcome, I said. I just wanted to be treated like a father, not an ATM. I just wanted to sit at this table and feel like I belonged. I held the paper up. But Courtney banned me. She told me I was too loud. She told me I was an embarrassment. And you stood there, Marcus. You stood there and watched her close the door in my face. I ripped the document in half. The sound was loud in the quiet room. You traded a mansion for a seat at a table where you were not even respected, I said. You traded your inheritance because you were too afraid to tell your wife to be polite. Marcus put his head in his hands. He made a sound that was half sob, half scream. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. He had lost everything, not because of bad luck, but because of weakness. He had lost a fortune because he couldn't stand up for his father. I am so sorry, he wept. I am so sorry, Dad. I didn't know. Ignorance is not a defense, I said. It is a choice. You chose not to know. You chose to let her handle everything because it was easier. And now you are paying the price for easy. I threw the torn pieces of the deed into the trash can. Levi, I said, what is the current market value of this property? Levi checked his notes. In this condition, even with the market dip, we are looking at $2.8 million. The land alone is worth $2 million. List it, I said. Marcus looked up. You are selling it. I said. I want a for sale sign on the lawn by noon. I want it sold as is, furniture included. I do not want a single spoon left from this life. But where will the money go? Marcus asked. He wasn't asking for himself. He knew he didn't deserve a dime. Half of it goes back into the Bishop Educational Trust, I said. We are going to replace every penny Courtney stole from Zoe plus interest. Your daughter will go to college. She will travel. She will have the future you almost let your wife steal. And the other half? Marcus asked. The other half goes to the Southside Community Shelter, I said. The shelter where your mother used to volunteer. They need a new roof. They need beds. They need food for people who are actually hungry, not people who are just hungry for status. Marcus nodded. He wiped his face. That is good. That is right. He stood up. He looked around the room one last time. He looked at the crystal chandelier. He looked at the silk curtains. He looked at the life he had lived for 10 years. It was all a stage set, he whispered. Just like you said. He looked at me. So what happens to me, Dad? Where do I go? I looked at my son. He was standing there in his blue coveralls, ready to work. He was broke. He was homeless. But he was awake. You go back to the beginning, I said. I pulled a set of keys from my pocket. They were single keys on a plain metal ring, not the heavy brass keys of the mansion. You go to the apartment on 33rd Street, you live there, you pay rent. Rent, Marcus asked. $800 a month, I said. Market rate. You pay for your own heat, you pay for your own food, and you pay for your own mistakes. And money, he asked. You have a job, I said. You start at the warehouse in an hour. $15 an hour. 40 hours a week. If you work overtime, you get time and a half. Marcus took the keys. He gripped them tight. It is going to be hard, I said. You are going to be tired. You are going to be lonely. But Marcus, when you lie down in that bed at night, you will know that nobody can kick you out, because you earned it. Marcus nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. Thank you, he said. Thank you, I asked, surprised. Thank you for saving me, he said. If you hadn't done this, if you hadn't pulled the plug, I would still be asleep. I would still be letting her drain me dry. I would have lost my soul, Dad. You took the house, but you gave me back my life. I felt a lump in my throat. This was the payout. This was the return on investment I had been hoping for. Go get your daughter, I said. She is waiting in the car with Dante. Take her for breakfast, a cheap breakfast. You are on a budget now. Marcus smiled. A weak, genuine smile. McDonald's, he said. She loves hash browns. Courtney never let her eat them because they were greasy. Buy her two, I said. Marcus walked to the door. He stopped and looked back at Levi. Levi, he said, do me a favor. Yes, Marcus. When you list the house, put in the description that it has great acoustics. Courtney always liked the sound of her own voice in here. Levi smiled. I will make a note of it. Marcus walked out. The door closed behind him. I stood there in the silence. The house felt dead. The soul of the family had walked out the door and was heading toward a beat-up sedan and a McDonald's drive-thru. I looked at Levi. Draft the listing, I said. And Levi. Yes, Winston. Call the power company. To turn the heat back on, Levi asked, closing his binder. No, I said, walking toward the door. Tell them to cut it for good. I want the pipes to freeze. I want this place to be as cold as Courtney's heart. I walked out of the mansion and I didn't look back. I left the millions behind. I left the marble and the gold. I was heading to the warehouse. I had a new employee starting today, and I wanted to be there when he punched his first clock. I wanted to be there when he became a man. The house was gone, but the foundation remained, and that was all we needed to build something real. The visiting room at Cook County Jail does not smell like freedom. It smells of industrial bleach and stale sweat and the metallic tang of old keys. It is a place where hope goes to die and where reality finally catches up with the people who thought they could outrun it. I sat on a metal stool bolted to the concrete floor. The seat was cold and hard against my back. Next to me sat Marcus. He looked different than he did 3 months ago. The softness was gone from his face. His jawline was sharper, defined by physical labor and the kind of deep sleep that only comes from an honest day's work. He was wearing a clean flannel shirt and jeans. His hands rested on the stainless steel counter in front of us. They were rougher now. There was a healing cut on his thumb from a packing crate. He did not hide his hands anymore. He did not feel the need to get a manicure. We had been waiting for 20 minutes. The guards were taking their time. They always do. It is part of the punishment. They make you wait just to remind you that your time does not belong to you anymore. Are you okay, son? I asked, keeping my voice low. Marcus nodded. He did not look at me. He kept his eyes fixed on the empty chair on the other side of the thick plexiglass barrier. I am fine, Dad, he said. I just want to get this over with. I need to get back. I promised Zoe I would help her with her science project tonight. I smiled. Zoe was doing well. She was thriving, actually. Since moving into the small apartment with Marcus, she had stopped caring about brand names and started caring about her grades. She was happy. The heavy steel door on the other side of the glass buzzed. A red light flashed. The door swung open with a heavy clank that echoed off the cinder block walls. And then she walked in. I had to blink to make sure it was her. The woman who walked into the room was not the Courtney Vance who had hosted galas and sipped champagne. That woman was gone. This woman was thin, skeletal almost. Her orange jumpsuit hung off her frame like a sack. Her hair, the blonde mane she used to spend hundreds of dollars maintaining, was pulled back in a messy bun. But the roots were dark. 3 inches of dark brown roots showing the world that the blonde was just another lie she had painted on. Her skin was sallow under the harsh fluorescent lights. There were dark circles under her eyes deep enough to hold rainwater. She walked with a shuffle. Her ankles were shackled. The sound of the chains dragging on the linoleum floor was the only sound in the room. Shh, clink, shh, clink. She sat down in the chair. She did not look at the guard who unlocked her handcuffs and chained them to the table instead. She looked straight at Marcus. Her eyes were wet. They were pleading. They were terrified. She picked up the black phone handset on her side of the glass. Her hand was trembling so bad she almost dropped it. Marcus picked up his phone. I leaned in so I could hear. "Baby," she whispered. Her voice was scratchy and thin. "Baby, you came." I knew you would come. I told them. I told the girls in the block that my husband would not leave me here to rot. Marcus did not smile. He did not cry. He just looked at her. "Hello, Courtney," he said. Courtney pressed her hand against the glass. Her fingernails were bitten down to the quick. "Get me out of here, Marcus," she begged. "Please. You have to get me out. It is a nightmare in here. The food is inedible. The bed is just a metal slab. And the women? They are animals, Marcus. They yell all night. I have not slept in weeks. I cannot survive this. I am not built for this." "You are awaiting trial," Courtney Marcus said calmly. "The judge denied bail because you are a flight risk. You tried to run. Remember." "I was panicked." Courtney cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I wasn't running away from you. I was running from him." She pointed a shaking finger at me. He did this, Marcus. He set me up. He planted those pearls. He paid off the sheriff. You know he has connections. He is evil, Marcus. He wants to destroy our love. Marcus sighed. It was a heavy sound, a sound of exhaustion. Stop it, Courtney, he said. Just stop. Dad didn't plant the emails. Dad didn't force you to steal from Zoe's trust fund. Dad didn't make you rent an apartment for your boyfriend. Courtney flinched. The mention of the boyfriend seemed to slap her sober. That was nothing, she whispered. Julian. He was just a friend. He was helping me with investments. It was strictly business. Stop lying, Marcus said. His voice raised a decibel. Just stop lying. We found the letters, Courtney. We found the birth certificate. The boy. He has your eyes. Courtney froze. She looked around the room as if searching for an exit, but there were no exits, just concrete and steel. I did what I had to do, she hissed. Her face twisted into a snarl. You were not enough, Marcus. You were never enough. You were boring. You were weak. I needed excitement. I needed a real man. Marcus nodded slowly. You are right, he said. I was weak. I was weak because I let you walk all over me. But I am not weak anymore. He leaned forward. I filed the divorce papers this morning, Courtney. Full custody of Zoe. You are not going to see her again. Not until she is 18 and decides for herself if she wants to visit a felon. No, Courtney screamed. She slammed her fist against the glass. You cannot take my daughter. I am a good mother. A good mother does not steal her daughter's college money to buy drugs for her dealer boyfriend, Marcus said. He hung up the phone. Courtney screamed. The sound was muffled by the glass, but I could see her mouth opening wide, her cords straining. She looked like a demon trapped in a jar. She banged on the glass with both fists. The guard stepped forward, his hand on his baton. Sit down, inmate, the guard barked. Courtney ignored him. She looked at me. She grabbed the phone again. Winston. She yelled into the receiver I knew was still live on my end. Winston, please, I picked up the handset. Marcus looked at me. He nodded. He was done. It was my turn. Winston, help me, she sobbed. Her anger was gone, replaced by pure desperation. I am sorry. Okay, I am sorry for everything. I am sorry about the dinner. I am sorry about the pearls. I will pay you back, I swear. Just drop the charges. Tell the DA it was a misunderstanding. You have the power. You can make this go away. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had lived in my house for 10 years, who had eaten my food, who had spent my money, and who had treated me like a nuisance. I cannot make it go away, Courtney, I said. My voice was calm. It was the voice of a judge delivering a sentence. You broke the law, you broke the trust, and you broke my family. But we are family, she pleaded. I am your daughter-in-law. Not anymore, I said. Marcus just fired you. Please, Winston, she whispered. Look at me. I am suffering. I have nothing. I have no money. I have no friends. I am all alone in here. I leaned in closer to the glass. I wanted her to see my eyes. I wanted her to see that there was no hate there. Only indifference. Do you remember Thanksgiving, Courtney? I asked. She blinked, confused by the question. What? Do you remember what you told me at the door? I continued. You told me I wasn't good enough for your table. You told me I was an embarrassment. You told me to go eat at a diner. I didn't mean it, she stammered. I was stressed. You meant every word I said. You wanted a perfect Thanksgiving. You wanted a table full of rich people who admired you. You wanted to be the queen of the manor. I paused, letting the silence stretch out. Well, Courtney, I have good news for you. What she asked, hope flickering in her eyes. You do not have to worry about cooking this year, I said. She stared at me. And you do not have to worry about the bill, I continued. Because where you are going, everything is provided. I stood up. I buttoned my coat. You banned me from my own table because I made you ashamed, I said. You wanted to be exclusive. Well, you got your wish. You are in a very exclusive club now. Courtney stood up too. Her chains rattled. What are you saying? She screamed. I am saying enjoy the meal, Courtney, I said. Then I delivered the line I had been saving for 3 months. The line that was the receipt for every insult she had ever thrown at me. You are eating for free now, I said, and you do not even have to tip the waiter. Consider it my final act of hospitality. I hung up the phone. Courtney stood there, mouth open, eyes wide. The realization hit her. I wasn't going to save her. I wasn't going to drop the charges. I was leaving her there. I turned to Marcus. Ready to go, son? I asked. Marcus stood up. He didn't look back at the glass. Ready, Dad, he said. We turned and walked toward the heavy steel door. Behind us, Courtney lost it. Winston, she screamed. Her voice was faint through the thick glass, but I could hear it. Marcus, don't leave me. Come back. I will die in here. Come back. She slammed her body against the glass. Thud. 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 The guard moved in. He grabbed her by the shoulders. She fought him, kicking and screaming. 2 more guards rushed in. They pinned her to the table. I didn't turn around. Marcus didn't turn around. We walked through the door. The buzzer sounded. Buzz. The door clanked shut behind us. The screaming stopped, cut off by 3 inches of steel and concrete. We walked down the long gray hallway. Our footsteps echoed in rhythm. Click-clack, click-clack. We walked out of the jail and into the bright sunlight of the parking lot. The air was cold, but it tasted sweet. It tasted clean. Marcus took a deep breath. He looked up at the sky. It is over, he said. Yes, I said, unlocking the car. It is over. He got into the passenger seat of the Ford. He looked at his hands. She looked so small, he said softly. Guilt is a heavy weight, I said, starting the engine. It shrinks you. Marcus nodded. What happens to her now, he asked. Now the justice system takes over, I said. She will have a trial. She will likely go to prison for 5 to 10 years. By the time she gets out, Zoe will be a grown woman. You will be a different man. And I will probably be gone. Don't say that, Dad, Marcus said, looking at me. You are going to live forever. You are the Duke. I laughed. I am just a man, Marcus. A man who cleaned up his mess. I put the car in gear. Where to? Marcus asked. Work, I said. We have a shipment coming in at 2, and I promised Miller you would work the forklift today. Marcus smiled. A real, genuine smile. I am ready, he said. We drove away from the jail. I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The gray building shrank in the distance until it was just a smudge on the horizon. I felt a lightness in my chest. The toxicity was gone. The leech was removed. My family was broke. We lived in a walk-up apartment. We drove a 10-year-old car. But we were free. And as I drove my son to work to earn an honest wage, I knew that this was the greatest fortune I could ever leave him. The fortune of a clear conscience and a hard day's work. The charade was dead. Long live the truth. The air in the Southside Community Center did not smell like expensive beeswax candles or imported lilies. It smelled of roasted turkey and sage stuffing and damp wool coats drying on a radiator. It smelled of industrial floor cleaner and collard greens simmering in giant steel pots. To anyone else, it might have smelled like a shelter, but to me, it smelled like victory. I stood near the back of the gymnasium, leaning against the scuffed brick wall. I was wearing an apron over my shirt, not a tuxedo, not a designer suit, a white cotton apron stained with gravy and cranberry sauce. And for the first time in 10 years, I did not feel the urge to check my watch. It was Thanksgiving Day. Exactly 1 year since the lights went out at the mansion. Exactly 1 year since the silence of a fake life was shattered by the truth. I looked across the room at the serving line. There were 50 people waiting for food. Men with weathered faces who slept under bridges. Women holding children who had outgrown their coats. Veterans who had fought for this country only to be forgotten by it. And standing behind the steam trays, serving them with a smile that lit up the room, was my son. Marcus looked different. If you had known him a year ago, you would not recognize him today. The soft, doughy look of a man who never lifted anything heavier than a wine glass was gone. He was leaner now. His shoulders were broader, filling out the gray polo shirt that read Bishop Logistics Warehouse Manager. He had started on the loading dock sweeping floors. He had come home every night for 3 months, with blisters on his hands and an aching back. He never complained, not once. He paid his rent on time. He learned the business from the ground up. And 3 months ago, when the shift manager retired, the crew voted for Marcus to take his place. Not because of his last name, but because he was the first one in and the last one out. I watched him scoop a generous portion of mashed potatoes onto a paper plate. The man in line was old, shaking from Parkinson's, or the cold, or both. Marcus did not rush him. He leaned over the counter. "Plenty of gravy, right, Pops?" Marcus asked, his voice warm and steady. The old man nodded, his eyes tearing up. "Thank you, son." Marcus smiled. You do not have to thank me. It is an honor to serve you. Happy Thanksgiving. I felt a lump in my throat the size of a fist. That was my son. That was a bishop. Next to him was Zoe, my beautiful granddaughter. She was 16 now. She was wearing a simple sweater and jeans, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She was laughing as she put a bread roll on a little girl's tray. And there it was, resting against the black fabric of her sweater. The pearls. Beatrice's pearls. I had spent 2 weeks hunting them down after Courtney was arrested. The pawn shop had already sold them to a private collector in New York. I had to pay double what they were worth to get them back. But the moment I clasped them around Zoe's neck this morning, it was worth every penny. They belonged to her. They were a symbol not of wealth but of survival. She wore them with a grace her mother never possessed. The room was loud. There was no polite jazz music playing in the background. It was a cacophony of scraping chairs and clinking silverware and loud, boisterous laughter. It was the sound of people who were genuinely happy to be warm and fed. A man named Miller, the foreman from the warehouse, walked up to me. He was holding a plastic cup of iced tea. "He is a good man," Winston Miller said, nodding toward Marcus. "The boys respect him. He does not ask anyone to do a job he will not do himself." I nodded, keeping my eyes on my son. "He learned the hard way, Miller." But he learned. "He reminds me of you," Miller said. "Back in the day, before the suits and the boardrooms. Just a man getting it done." "That is the best compliment you could give me," I said. Miller clapped me on the shoulder and walked away. I watched Marcus finish serving the line. He wiped his hands on his apron and walked over to a table where a group of homeless veterans were eating. He sat down with them. He did not sit at a head table. He did not demand special treatment. He sat right there in the middle of them, listening to their stories. I saw him throw his head back and laugh at a joke one of the men told. It was a real laugh. It came from his belly. It was not the polite, nervous titter he used to give at Courtney's dinner parties. This was the laugh of a man who was comfortable in his own skin. He looked up and saw me watching him. He excused himself and walked over. He moved with a confidence I had never seen before. It was the confidence of competence. "Hey, Dad," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We are running low on stuffing. I am going to run back to the kitchen and grab another tray." "I will get it," I said. "You take a break. You have been on your feet for 4 hours. Marcus shook his head. "I am good, Dad. I want to make sure everyone gets fed. We have another bus coming in from the downtown shelter in 10 minutes. He looked out over the room. His eyes were bright. "This is amazing," he said softly. "It is," I agreed. "You know," Marcus said, looking down at his work boots, "last year I was so worried about the wine pairing. I was so worried about whether the napkins were folded correctly. I was terrified that people would judge us. And now I asked." "Now," Marcus said, looking at the sea of people. "Now I realize nobody cares about the napkins, Dad. They care about the welcome." He looked at me. His face was serious. "I visited her yesterday, Dad." I stiffened. "You went to the prison?" Marcus nodded. "It was Thanksgiving. I thought she should know that Zoe is doing okay." "How is she?" I asked. "She is the same," Marcus said. "She asked about the house. She asked if I was dating anyone rich. She asked if I could put money on her commissary account. She has not changed, Dad. She is still hungry for things that do not matter." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her I was happy," Marcus said. "I told her I was working a double shift today, and I told her that for the first time in my life I am not hungry anymore." He smiled a crooked smile that reminded me so much of his mother. "She did not understand," he said. "She looked at me like I was crazy. She asked why I was wearing a uniform. She said I looked like a servant." "And what did you say?" "I told her that there is dignity in service," Marcus said, "and that I would rather serve turkey to a man with no shoes than serve lies to a man with a checkbook." I put my hand on his shoulder. I squeezed hard. "I am proud of you, son," I said. Marcus's eyes shined. "Thanks, Dad. That means more than the inheritance ever did." We stood there for a moment, just two men in dirty aprons amidst the noise and the chaos. Zoe ran over to us. She was holding a paper plate with a slice of pumpkin pie. "Grandpa, Daddy," she said. "You guys have to eat. You have not had a bite all day." She handed the plate to Marcus. He took a bite and groaned. "Store-bought," he said. "Definitely Costco." I agreed, laughing. "It is delicious," Marcus said. He broke off a piece and handed it to me. "Happy Thanksgiving, Dad," he said. "Happy Thanksgiving, son." I looked around the room one last time. I thought about the cold, dark mansion sitting empty on the other side of town. The pipes were probably frozen. The dust was settling on the marble floors. It was a ghost ship. But here, in this noisy, smelly, crowded gymnasium, life was vibrant. I saw Zoe adjust the pearls at her neck. She caught me looking and smiled. She touched the beads lovingly. "Grandma is here," she whispered. "Yes, she is," I said. "She is right here." I watched my family. We were broke by the world's standards. We lived in a walk-up. We drove a dented car. We worked with our hands. But as I took a bite of that cheap pumpkin pie, I tasted something I hadn't tasted in years. I tasted peace. The long winter was over. The charade was finished. We had stripped the house down to the studs and rebuilt it with the only materials that last. Truth, hard work, and love. Marcus finished his pie and clapped his hands. "All right," he shouted to the kitchen crew. "Let us get that stuffing out here. We have hungry people waiting." He ran back toward the kitchen, his work boots thudding against the floor. I watched him go. The Zero had become a hero. Not the kind that wears a cape, the kind that shows up. I adjusted my apron and followed him. "I am coming," I said. There was work to do, and for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to every minute of it. The real Thanksgiving had finally begun. The last bus had pulled away from the curb outside the Southside Community Center, leaving behind only the swirl of exhaust and falling snow. Inside the gymnasium, the roar of the crowd had faded to the rhythmic swishing of a mop and the clatter of metal chairs being stacked against the brick wall. The smell of roasted turkey still hung in the air, mixed now with the scent of pine cleaner and hard work. It was the smell of a day well spent. I sat on a folding metal chair in the corner of the room, my back resting against the cold cinder block. My apron was untied, hanging loosely around my neck. My legs were tired. My lower back ached with the dull throb that comes to every man over 70. But as I looked out across the empty room, I felt a lightness in my chest that defied gravity. I watched Marcus. He was at the far end of the gym, pushing a wide industrial dust mop. He was moving with a steady rhythm. Step push. Step push. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't checking his phone. He was just doing the job. A year ago, if you had asked Marcus to mop a floor, he would have looked at you as if you had asked him to speak a dead language. He would have called a maid. He would have called a service. He would have thrown money at the problem until it went away. But tonight, he was the service. He stopped to wipe his forehead with the back of his sleeve. His forearms were covered in soap suds from washing the giant pots in the kitchen. His blue coveralls were stained. His boots were scuffed. He looked beautiful. He looked like my father. He looked like the men who built this city. He looked like a bishop. Miller, the foreman, walked up to him. I saw them talking. Miller pointed to a spot on the floor Marcus had missed. A year ago, Marcus would have been offended. He would have fired a man for correcting him. Tonight, he just nodded, smiled, and went back over the spot. He took the criticism. He owned the work. Then I looked at Zoe. She was sitting on the edge of the stage, counting the leftover canned goods we were going to donate to the food pantry next door. She was tired too. Her ponytail was messy, but she was humming a song to herself. She reached up and touched the pearls at her throat. It was an unconscious gesture, a habit. She touched them not because they were expensive, but because they were heavy. They had weight. They reminded her of who she was. I reached into the inside pocket of my wool coat. My fingers brushed against the worn leather of my old wallet. I pulled it out. It was shaped to the curve of my body after 40 years. I opened it. There in the plastic window was a black and white photo. It was small and creased at the corners. It was taken in 1975. Beatrice. She was standing on the front stoop of our first apartment. She was wearing a simple cotton dress. She was smiling that smile that used to make me forget to breathe. She looked fierce. She looked kind. I pulled out my handkerchief. It was a simple cotton square, not silk. I wiped a smudge of dust from the plastic covering her face. I looked at her eyes in the photo. "We did it, B," I whispered. "I wished you could see him. I wished you could see the man he has become." I remembered the nights I used to lie awake, staring at the ceiling of the mansion, worrying about Marcus. I worried that I had ruined him. I worried that my success had become his poison. I gave him everything we never had, and in doing so, I took away the one thing he needed. The struggle. I thought legacy was about leaving money. I thought it was about leaving a company with trucks on the road and buildings with our name on them. I thought I was building an empire for him to rule. But empires crumble, buildings get sold, trucks rust. Money is not a legacy, money is just a tool, and if you give a power tool to a toddler, he is going to hurt himself. I looked back at Marcus pushing the mop. That is the legacy. The legacy is the sweat on his brow. The legacy is the fact that he can lose everything and still stand up in the morning. The legacy is that he knows the difference between a price tag and value. He lost the mansion, he lost the Porsche, he lost the fair weather wife. But he found his spine. I looked at the photo of Beatrice again. You were right, I told her. You always told me to be hard on him. You told me not to cushion the fall. I was soft, B. I wanted him to have it easy. But easy is a trap. Easy is a slow death. I had to break his heart to save his life. I had to let him hit the bottom so he could find the solid rock to build on. Marcus finished mopping. He leaned the handle against the wall. He walked over to Zoe. He helped her lift a heavy box of cans. He didn't just point and tell her to move it. He lifted it with her. They laughed about something, probably about how bad the pumpkin pie was, probably about how much their feet hurt. It was the sound of a family that was safe. Not safe from poverty. We were still digging out of the hole. But safe from lies. Safe from the poison of pretending to be something we were not. Marcus looked across the room and saw me. He walked over. Zoe followed him. They stood in front of me. Two tired, happy people. We are all done, Dad Marcus said. Miller locked up the kitchen. The truck is loaded. We are ready to go home. Home. He didn't mean the mansion. He meant the apartment. He meant the place where the radiator clanked and the neighbors argued and the wind rattled the windows. But it was the place where we told the truth. I put the wallet back in my pocket. I kept the handkerchief in my hand. Sit down for a minute, son, I said. Marcus pulled up a chair. Zoe sat on the floor next to my knees, resting her head against my leg. Marcus looked at me. What is it, Dad? Are you okay? Do you need a doctor? I shook my head. I am fine. Better than fine. I looked him in the eye. I want to tell you something, Marcus. Something I should have told you 10 years ago. Marcus leaned in. I used to think my job as a father was to protect you from the world I said. I thought if I put enough money between you and the cold, you would be happy. I looked down at my rough hands. But a father's job isn't to be a shield. It is to be a whetstone. My job was to sharpen you, to make you strong enough to cut through the hard parts of life yourself. I failed you for a long time, Marcus. I let you get dull. I let you get soft. And I let a woman like Courtney come in and rust you out. Marcus shook his head. You didn't fail me, Dad. I failed myself. No, I said sternly. We are not doing blame tonight. We are doing truth. I pointed at him. You are a man now, Marcus. And do you know why? Because I have a job, he asked, smiling slightly. No, because you know what matters. A man is not measured by the thickness of his wallet, I said. I have known billionaires who were spiritual paupers, and I have known men who swept streets who were kings. A man is measured by how he protects his dignity. A man is measured by how he protects his family from the wolves even if he has to fight with his bare hands. A man is measured by the fact that he does not need a stage to perform. He performs in the dark when nobody is watching. I looked at Zoe. Your father is a good man, Zoe. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. He made mistakes, but he fixed them, and fixing them takes a hell of a lot more courage than never making them in the first place. Zoe reached up and took Marcus's hand. I know, Grandpa, she said. I am proud of him. Marcus looked down. He was blinking fast, trying to hold back tears. Thanks, Dad, he whispered. I looked around the gym. I saw a stack of paper cups on a table nearby. There was a jug of apple cider left over from the dinner. I reached over and poured 3 small cups of cider. It wasn't vintage wine. It wasn't crystal. I handed a cup to Marcus. I handed one to Zoe. I held one for myself. I stood up. My knees popped, but I stood tall. The Duke was still in the building. I want to propose a toast, I said. Marcus and Zoe stood up. To Beatrice, I said, raising the paper cup toward the ceiling, toward the heavens, toward the woman who started it all. To the woman who taught us that love is not a feeling. It is an action. It is a verb. It is something you do. To Mom. Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. To Grandma, Zoe whispered, touching her pearls. And to the Bishop legacy, I added, not the trucks, not the money, not the buildings. Us. This right here. The three of us standing in a cold gym with warm hearts. We clinked the paper cups together. It was a dull thud, not a chime, but it sounded better than any crystal I had ever heard. We drank the cider. It was sweet and cold. I crushed the cup in my hand and tossed it into the trash. "All right," I said, wiping my mouth with the handkerchief. "That is enough sentiment for one night. We have a shift in the morning, and Marcus, if you are late, Miller is going to write you up. I do not care if your last name is on the building." Marcus laughed. "I will be there, Dad. I will be there early." We walked toward the exit. Marcus put his arm around Zoe. I walked a step behind them, watching them. We stepped out into the night. The snow had stopped. The sky was clear. The stars were shining down on the south side of Chicago. They shone just as bright here as they did over the mansion. Maybe brighter because there were fewer artificial lights to drown them out. We walked to the car, my old Ford sedan. I got in the driver's seat. Marcus got in the passenger side. Zoe sat in the back. I started the engine. It rumbled to life. I looked at Marcus. "Ready to go home, son?" I asked. Marcus looked out the window at the city. He looked at the street lights reflecting off the snow. "Yeah, Dad," he said. "Let us go home." I pulled away from the curb. I didn't look back at the past. I looked forward through the windshield at the road ahead. It was a long road. It was a hard road, but we were driving it together. And for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly where we were going. My name is Winston Bishop. They call me the Duke. And this is my legacy. Not what I own, but who I raised. And that is a wealth that no bank can ever foreclose on. Thank you for listening to my story. It was a hard journey, but the destination was worth every mile. Now I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Marcus the house back after he apologized, or was making him start from zero the only way to truly save him? I want to know what you think. Does tough love have a limit, or is it the only love that actually works? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more stories about real justice and real family. Until next time, keep your head up, keep your hands busy, and never let anyone disrespect your table. This is the Duke signing off.